And not a group. Well, I need to write some down and this is the first time that I should. Yeah. No. It just seems like this and I do the same so just so yeah, so I just it's better maybe it's skilled but what I like. Yeah. Oh. Cameron, who you guys started on Asian? Yes. I haven't gone to one yet. Yeah, we were in Spearfish yesterday. Oh yeah. Yeah, I toured the campus. Isn't it beautiful? It is. It's a lot smaller than I thought it was. It is, yeah. Yes.
House meeting ordered, joining the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
Okay, that brings us to number 2 under A. I need a motion to appoint a board member to the vacant position on the board of trustees to expire following the November 8th election. Do I have a motion?
Motion, I move to appoint, Mark Jefferson, to the vacant position of the board of trustees for tonight's meeting.
Motion, do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor of appointing Mark Jesperson to the vacant position for tonight's meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carries.
Mr. Jesperson, would you be willing to step up? Or do we have? these?
Oh, no, no. Yes.
Well, no.
One moment, gotta find it.
Sorry, we're going to share it.
While we're waiting for that, Brian typically has the Zoom projected up on that screen. Yeah, perfect. That way when he gets presentations, all I have to do is just thank you. Thank you for sitting in for Mr. Foster this evening.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support. That I will support. Obey and defend. Obey and defend the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Wyoming. And the Constitution of the State of Wyoming. That I have not knowingly violated any law related to my election. That I have not knowingly violated any law related to my election or appointment. Or caused it to be done by others. And that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. And that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Thank you.
Just some information for everyone in regards to the appointment in statute. When we have a resignation from the board, it is a requirement, even based on the election being held today, that an appointment be made by the board within 30 days. So that is the reason for the appointment for one meeting as opposed to waiting for the election. That seat will be filled in the election that was culminating this evening. And so a new member will be sworn in that position at the December regular meeting.
Okay, having taken care of that, we'll move down to number 3. Are there any adjustments or directions to the agenda?
No, there are none for this evening.
Okay. With that, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented this evening?
I move to adopt the agenda.
Do I have a second? Okay, any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda that was presented this evening. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have an agenda. We'll move down to letter B, which is recognition for the years of service of board members Catherine Patrick and Gary Bolt.
I can have trustee Bullington join me for me. Trustee Bullington joined the board in December of 2018 and has served as an outstanding member with the Board of Trustees since that time. During that time period, Trustee Bullington has overseen 452 graduates from the Goshen County High Schools, from Torrington, Lingle, and Southeast. I know she has actually been involved in the process of hiring a superintendent and also the hiring of multiple teachers, custodians, staff members in the maintenance department and in kitchen, and also principals and numerous teaching positions. I have gotten to know Trustee Bullington over the years, and I know many of you have met her through her early childhood work, but we greatly appreciate her work as a member of the board, overseeing some very difficult times. Within her tenure as a board member, we do always remind board members who have finished their term, they are always welcome to run again in their term if they would like to. And we greatly appreciate her time. And we have a token of that recognition here. And I just want to say thank you, Trustee Bullington, for your years of service to the Goshen County School District.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Patrick was unable to join us this evening, but I did have some of the statistics very similar to Trustee Bullington. In December of 2019, Trustee Patrick was voted on to the Board of Trustees for the Goshen County School District. She has overseen 951 students graduating from 3 different high schools in the county, and again has been a part of a superintendent search and numerous teachers, and then also staff member appointments in that time period. We greatly appreciate Trustee Patrick's work throughout the years of service, and she will, when she has time, I'll meet up with her and get her our token of our appreciation for her work as a board member. I was hoping she might be able to join us, but I don't see her on tonight. So, but I would be appreciative of a round of applause for her work since December.
Okay, we'll move down to letter C, information and proposals. Number 1 is reports from student representatives to the board.
As they're going up to the podium, kind of get some background information because it was kind of a unique set of circumstances for this month. They were asked to comment on a proposal from the policy committee relating to school dress code. Currently, our school dress code is found in each individual high schools or each individual school's handbook. There's an interest from the policy committee to have a district-wide dress code, and they came up with a draft and shared that with the 3 students for the conversation, and they're going to kind of give us their thoughts. I did ask them to just relate their thoughts on this topic, as this will not be something that will go into effect this year, but would go into effect for the 2023-2024 school year. Lacey, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, good evening. My name is Christy Gurney, and I am the representative for THS. Like Mr. Kramer said, our topic tonight is on dress code. And I recently attended the 95th National FFA Convention Expo earlier in October. And from there, I have seen different dress codes and why people need to dress versus that. Our ag sales team of 4 girls were given specific shirts, shoes, nylons, and obviously their FFA jackets to compete. We weren't really stoked about having these certain choices made for us. However, when we got out there, we found that there were students who wore tighter skirts, higher heels, and that just wasn't professional, especially in the ag sales contest. Like I said, we were part of 66,000 other FFA members in Indianapolis, Indiana. And our eyes were quickly opened to inappropriate dress that was there. We soon realized that we were dressed for success as we got to walk across stage as the 4th high team overall in that contest. So raising the bar to dress for success is something that I think needs to be in place.
Hello, my name is Alex McIntyre. I'm the student director of Southeast High School. And I think a dress code across the district would allow students and mostly students to be more unified as a district. I see there's a lot of separation in between the 3 schools with a dress code that is specific to all the district. I see a lot more unity. Coming from a private school where you had a certain amount of dress and certain amount of things you could wear, this is a lot more lax, and the more lax it can be, the more students will be able to express themselves in future problems or future events. But one thing I do know from experience is that if you have a very strict policy, you will find that many kids will push it to the limits and they will test you on everything. Another thing is just dress codes are out there for everyone's safety, for everyone's to be focused, and I think a unified dress code would really help the district become more unified and see more school spirit across the board.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cameron Rafferty. I'm the student representative of Lingle Fort Laramie. And after hearing the topic, I did not know exactly how to address this, but after hearing about the idea of having a unified dress code, I think that is a great idea. High school, the purpose of high school is to get us ready for college or whatever we decide to do with the rest of our life. And there is no real dress code in college, and there is no real dress code for real life. But we also don't see people out in real life pushing things necessarily in the way that one might be scared that a high school student would, but that's just not something that we see every day. I think that if we were, after reading what the idea for this new dress code was, I think that it's a great idea. I think that it's one less thing for the teachers to have to worry about having that uncomfortable conversation, asking someone to have to put their arms next to their legs to see if their skirt's long enough. I think that if this were to be put in place, it'd be very effective, and it would also help teachers out quite a bit. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just gonna, it's all right, actually, I'm just gonna post, or I'm gonna share that document real quick. And again, that was shared with the 3 students just to have an idea. We have a lot of work to still do on this, but the proposal is looking for, as these students have their last meeting, go ahead and sit down. You don't need to speak. The next group of student representatives certainly will be asked the same questions and more detailed information. But I want to get to that. Because as I believe Cameron referenced, there isn't in this proposal the length of arms down to the side. There is not that type of language in this proposal. It is very generalized, and trying to get to a more consistent method across the district as opposed to individual schools and different dress codes for each one. And as I referenced, it's much more generalized than what many other dress codes. The committee took a look at multiple dress codes. And one of the things that this really addresses is the obscene language, clothing depicting describing alcohol, tobacco, or illegal substances, insignias containing words, symbols, messages, styles of gang symbols, logos, or emblems, with the grade, gender, religion, culture, ethics, values, or any other considered obscenities that should be changed. All head coverings must worn for religious reasons or medical reasons. Spike bracelets, collars, or necklaces, undergarments that are visible below the waistline during normal activity, and footwear must be worn at all times. As you can see, this is much more generalized than some of the other dress codes that have been in other districts around. There is definitely strong opinions on many different sides, and we're looking for a starting point and ask what they thought, and had an opportunity to take a look, and then the students that will come and sit in their positions over the next year will be asked that same thought process. And I appreciate them taking time to get up there and knowing that this topic is not easy to speak about as a student, as definitely varying opinions arise from certainly the student body. So thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge Clancy referenced it, but I do want to point out that when she was a member of the FFA Ag Sales Team who placed fourth overall at the FFA National Competition. Sarah Birdsall, Carly Duggar, Lacey Groney, and Terrence Stokes were her teammates, also their advisor, Jason Groney. They did an awesome job. We were following it throughout. I even watched it on video as you guys were there. So that is awesome, a lot of work. So Lacey, your work at FFA is definitely appreciated, and thank you for what you do. Thank you to your team for representing Goshen County.
Okay, with that, we'll move down to number 2, school presentation and artwork at Harvard High School.
Torrington High, Elton Hubbard, Torrington High School. Tonight, I have a leadership group with Mrs. Ogburn to do the presentation. Welcome.
Well, while we're trying to get this up, my name's Carly Duggar. My name's Bryce Morehouse. My name's Keegan Black. I'm Whitney Booyer. Okay, so we're the CHS Student Leadership Group, also known as Sources of Strength. We were chosen by a group of staff members and out of our peers in our high school to be a part of leadership. They noticed that we were courageous and a natural born leader, no matter what group we are in. So we're going to let you guys know what we've been doing in leadership. First, leadership. This is just about what we do in the class. In leadership, we learn basic leadership skills that we'll use in our future. We learn about strengths and how to use our strengths to overcome our weaknesses. And then lastly, we go to the other schools in the district and teach them the skills that we've learned. So our next slide is growing leaders. So we work with Banner Health and they come in and they give presentations and we have discussions with them about what it means to be a leader in work environments to get us ready for that next step in life. And last time they came, they gave us a book and we take a test and it gives us 5 characteristics of leader qualities that we give off. And then we get to read and learn more about them, which is really cool. And then for our class, we have to write a presentation or a word paper. And for that paper, we can research everything from interviewing a leader in our community to doing online are reading books and magazines. And the topic is what is a good week. So Club Rush. So at the beginning of this year, we decided to show kids that they are welcome anywhere in the school, especially coming back to school. It's really hard for certain kids to realize that they are a part of the school and that they do have a group that they belong in. So we made little groups, and it was dodgeball. We had all the clubs in the commons area, spike ball, sidewalk talk, crafts in the library, and we're hoping to do another club rush at the end of the year. That's gonna be a school barbecue and a social strength day, as we did last year. So pretty much we had a dodgeball tournament, which all the kids found really interesting. They were able to play against each other and have a little bit of a friendly competition. And then we had spike ball, which was really fun up on stage, and then sidewalk talk, and then crafts in the library, which allowed kids to just relax and have fun and realize that they are doing hard work in the first part of school, but understand that we're really proud of them.
One day, the leadership team decided to greet the THS students with candy and inspirational notes attached to them at the front door. The leadership students did this so that THS students could have a good start to the day and know that they are seen and cared about. We did this by leadership students volunteering to stand out in the cold to help others out.
At the beginning of September, we went to the Multicultural Youth Leadership Conference, which was at WMTC. There we learned our new leadership skills and how different cultures make a change and use their voice. We went to many different groups and learned about different cultures. We split up from our classmates, so then we were able to meet new kids from other schools. And my favorite group that we had was when the guest speaker came and talked. And her story was about when she first came to America, she had her visa, but she ended up losing it and when she was young. And so she talked about the different tasks that it took to overcome it and to get her visa back. And then she wrote books about her stories, and now is a famous writer. So we are actually trained in sources of strength in this room, actually. And we did one at the end of last year, so around April, and we recently did a new training in September because we added a lot of the members to sources of strength. We had our lovely friend, Miss Janelle, come in and train us, and we learned how to tap into our strengths so we can help other people tap into their strengths. So we have the wheel, and it's really showing us how we can tap into mental health or family support or friend support and be able to help my peers and my classmates, and then my peers of peers can help their classmates and their peers if they're close to. We did games, we had deep conversations, but it also was fun, and we were able to talk to each other and have a really good time, but understand that people do need our help and we're here to help them. So Sources of Strength, it works with a youth suicide prevention project designed to harness the power of peer and social network to change unhealthy norms and culture, eliminate prevention of suicide, bullying, and substance abuse. The mission is to prevent suicide by help-seeking behaviors and promote connections between peers and caring adults. And then they utilize an upstream approach model, strengths, multiply sources of support, young individuals. And they focus on when times are hard, you do have strengths that you can rely on. And then we also base it off of a wheel, and there's 8 different spots on the wheels, and those are mental health, family support, positive friends, mentors, healthy activities, generosity, spirituality, and physical health. This is our peer leader mission statement. As a Sources of Strength, we have a mission statement that we stick by. And for Sources of Strength, our mission is to spread hope, health, and strength into every corner of our community so that everybody in our school has somewhere to belong. We want to spread hope by focusing on our story strength rather than the trauma.
Sources of Strength students meet in the THS library twice a month to create a community within our school. We help people be able to open up and to be able to spread a message of hope, health, and strength. We do this by meeting in the library during lunch. And we have lunch get provided to students. When we meet, we talk about our campaign and we just have.
So every quarter we're choosing a campaign, and this past first quarter we chose to do a We Belong campaign. It involved doing a bulletin board, media group, and parade, and a sticky note mural. So our bulletin board was a bunch of We Belong statements from our sort of Blue Strength team, and they just kind of explained how they belong in the school and how they can help others belong in the school. I was a part of the social media group along with Marissa. And we got people to take a picture with their mentor, and then we would send it to the Torrington Facebook or the Torrington Instagram page. And then we would post that and have them explain how this mentor helped them grow up, how this mentor has helped them just in school in general. The parade was a really beautiful idea that was brought to us by one of our strength adult leaders. And Whitney was running this. And we got every club in the school to have a little wagon book like it shows on here. And it really was showing the theme We Belong, and also showing that their club is in the school. So that way other kids can belong by going into the club. We had the band, and then following the parade, we had a cup war, which all the students got to the gym. And we were invited to see who could get the cup. And it was really fun. Everybody really got excited about that. And we were one big school. And then we had a sticky note mural, which Keegan was a part of. And he got people to say why they belong in the school. And then we did that and hung them up in the comments, which allowed others to understand how they belong and how maybe they can start feeling belong in a certain hobby or activity. This quarter, our new campaign is What Helped Me. So ways that we're going to promote that through our school is a lip sync battle, which we have never done before, but we thought it would be a cool new idea. So we're going to invite Torrington staff members, students, the community can even come, you members can come, teachers. But we're just going to have a lip sync battle and see how that goes. Then we have a bulletin board, which is kind of like the last one that we had. It will say what helped me win, and then students and sources of strength members will write out a statement of what helps them when they're feeling the 3 big emotions, which are anger, sadness, and anxiety. Then we have a community appreciation, which is where we're going to vote as a class what community resources have helped us in our class. And whichever ones we vote, then we'll send them like a thank you letter poster. Then we have club highlights, which is where we're going to go to each club and ask them what that club has done for them to make them or to help them with the 3 big emotions. And lastly, we go over to the TMS and we work with their peer leaders to help them with the skills that we're learning that they can pass on to their school. So I will talk more about going over and helping the peer leaders. So on Mondays, we're split into 2 groups. So each group goes over once a month on Mondays, and we work with their sources of strength team. And we share ideas that we have about our campaign and talk about our campaigns. And we also play fun games just to try to get everyone involved and feel like they belong. And then on Tuesday, the middle school split their school into 8 different houses based on the wheel. And we each get to go mingle with the middle schoolers and help them learn about sources of strength and the campaign, and just get them a little less scared for all the that are happening. And then we have social emotional learning, which is also known as SEL. And we all take videos on something that we feel like our student body would be useful for them. So what we've done past is thinking positive, how to learn, how to use voicemail, how to apologize, how to say no, how to properly greet someone, how to start a conversation. And then the upcoming ones we're working on right now are ways to be happy, proper handshake, and how to change a tire.
The purpose of Interact Club is to help bring together young people ages 12 to 18 to help us develop leadership skills while discovering the power of service above self. This happens by Interact Club or organizing at least 2 projects every year that help them school or community, and one project that promotes international understanding. Rotary Club sponsors, mentor, and guide interactors as they develop leadership skills. Last year, we sent out food trays to all community health care providers to say thank you. We also volunteered and ran cookie station during Christmas celebration downtown. We also went to BSI and served them hot chocolate and cookies, as well as going to the senior center and answering questions on technology. And we just do this to help the people within our community.
Thank you, guys.
I just want to say, you guys are doing an awesome job, and your creativity of coming up with a lot of this stuff's really amazing, so great job, guys. Now we'll move down to number 3, information on standards-based grading by Marv Heyman and Josh Jackson.
Thank you for the opportunity to share some information this evening regarding standards-based grading. Standards-based grading has existed at Farmington Middle School for about 7 years. It was voted in unanimously by our faculty after a year of researching the theory of standards-based grading. We want to share some of our insights from the school perspective with you this evening. And Mr. Jackson teaches 6th grade social studies at Farmington Middle School. He's a member of our leadership team, is going to share some thoughts from the teacher's perspective this evening. So thanks, Josh.
You know, in school, when you go after the couple amazing presentations, you're left with the, oh, great, now I gotta go. So nice job, everybody. I appreciate it. So standards-based grading, my understanding, there's some publicly stated concerns. Few of those are, it allows community retests, which does not prepare you for college. Awesome concern, I understand that, right? Another one, I'm unsure what true standards-based grading is, so let's just go back to the way things used to be when I was in school. Third one, standard-based grading improves achievement. And then a 4th one that I've heard is behind the scene there, really says standards aren't held accountable, students aren't held accountable for doing their classwork and homework. So hopefully we can, you know, if done right, we can change some of the perspectives. Here's some basic concepts of real standards-based grading. I think it's got muddy and mucked over the years because other ideas have been kind of put into the pot, so to say. So averaging is the antithesis of standards-based grading. Averaging doesn't belong in standards-based grading at all. You know, and I'll explain that in a moment why that is. Second one that we have is standards for academics and behavior should be separated. So why here in a moment. Third one, you should communicate learning through standards, which provides students and teachers with a clear journey for success. And the last one, ladies and gentlemen, wait, maybe, oh, see, that's right. There we go. Students track their data and have clear steps to attaining the standards-based goal. And the 5th one, I lied. Consequences of not doing your work should be to actually do your work. So the idea that kids are getting out of work, that's a misnomer that unfortunately shouldn't be happening. So here we go. Standards-based grading isn't about specific set of grades. Listen, I want to put all grades aside. I don't care about percentages. I don't care about A, B, C, D, F. I don't care about smiley face, thumbs up, thumbs like. Standards-based grading isn't about this. All right, standards-based grading is literally about hitting clear targets so students understand what it is that they're learning. All right. John Patty, the researcher, he did a meta-analysis, which is fancy word for big research across the world, and he found out that in the zone of desired effect, his question was, what has the greatest influence on student achievement? Anything that's a 0.4 or higher, is considered, good, a good influence on that achievement score. So some of these, that are the highest we can do. Teacher estimates of achievement is a 1.62, which is equivalent to, 2 years of, learning. All right, and so that just means positive relationships that push all students to want to succeed. Teachers should be building this anyway. Okay, collective teacher efficacy on his radar is when teachers can positively affect students and get all students to succeed. That's a 1.57. Where standard-based grading comes in, I feel. Self-reported grades, which reflect score their learning based on examples, exemplars, and make goals. That's a 1.33, which means that students are doing this and doing this well, and teachers are clear that students can grow once again 2 years in a given time. All right, and clarity. My wife's working with me on this one myself. So students and teachers have clear targets for learning, just like my wife, me, I guess. Here's what a standard-based grading should look like as a required report card. Patty says clearly defined targets that provide students with a clear path to success, increases learning. That's a 0.75 correlation as we showed you. What you see here is a star, there's the standard, right? Students be able to produce clear, coherent writing, which the development organization style appropriate practice. Everything under here is how do I reach that target? Sorry about that. And so students are led through this process to reach that main goal. It has nothing to do with grades or anything like that. It's just the clarity of knowing here's the target, here's what I gotta do, and here's how I get there. Okay. So another concern is, all right, let's go back to 1969. Just like we used to. If you look back at this report card from 1969, it actually has school, classes, academics, and citizenship separated. No different than standard-based grading, right? So my effort, Mr. Hammond said that his handwriting score would be an F+. I would be a witness to that. It is horrible, but you know, I still love the man. My conduct would probably be used somewhere. That's okay. But just like standard-based grading, race versus behavior, like I said, were and should be reported separately, just like today. Gordon McMahon, interesting quote. Whenever I hear statistics being quoted, I'm reminded of the statistician who drowned while wading across the river with an average depth of 3 feet, right? So, you know, somewhere in that river, there's a 20-foot drop, but, you know, when we average it all together, it's 3 feet across. So here's some concerns. This would be a natural report card. If I average these all the way across, I'm going to get an 80%. Right, so that's what's going to show up on a student's report card. And as a parent, myself, I have a student, 2 students in the system, right? I want to know, okay, so why is it 80? And I can tell you right now, the traditional standards, the traditional grading approach, teachers aren't going to be able to tell you why. All right, we're not focused on the 80, we're focused on the standard. But in traditional, when we just go to a percentage-based world, what's going to end up happening is we lose focus on the standards that the kids have to get. And guys, state assessment, there's standards, okay? So we're told, hey, here's the standard you have to hit, and good luck getting your student there, and we're doing whatever we can to get them there. Now, the big deal about this is, all right, so I've got hundreds on my standard 3, standard 4, standard 5, standard 2. If I don't get standard 2, and you just push me through, I'm gonna flunk algebra now in high school, because I didn't get the basic concepts that I needed in order to get there. And so that's why the standard-based approach is so important, because this was that, okay, we got to get you past this so you can still be successful. Otherwise, if all we see is this and we just pack it through, we're going to continue to have what we have right now. Kids continue not having prerequisites, all right? It's prerequisites in order to continue to go on college and be successful there. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you very much.
Here's a thought while he's waiting for this. So traditionally, 20 years ago, when I was going to those school, parents walk in, see an 80 and say, hey, my kid's doing pretty well. When I look at this, I say, well, student's doing really well on 3 of the 5 standards. But on the most important one, the one with the asterisk, he or she is failing. When we first heard about standards-based grading, we heard about it in the school district in North Carolina. And what they said is to get credit, let's take biology 1 at the high school level. There are 5 big units. To get credit in the course, you must pass 80% of the big targets, which would be 4 out of 5. This student is going to pass with an 80. In a standards-based world, the way we first learned it, the student would not get credit because they don't have 80%. So we feel like doing this in a standards-based environment would cause students to have to learn more, not less. So that student would have to fix one of the 50s. And that student would have to master the one with the asterisk. Because in every course, there are essential standards. So that's the way we start. Now, it could be percentage grades, it could be letter, it makes no difference. It could be yes, no. Did they learn what they were supposed to learn? But we would argue that that 80% is false. That student is not correctly prepared for what they need to know from that course. They do need to address one of those 2 standards. Thanks. Are you ready?
All right, I think I'm good. All right, once again, you're concerned, I'm sure what true standard-based grading is. What, if we look at this student here, I mean, this is what our normal report card would look like. Assignment 1 is 0, assignment 2 is 0, assignment 5 is 0. I'm gonna show you why that's, in my opinion, probably not the right way to score things. Show you that here in just a moment. Grading that's my past report card. Quite a while ago, past colleague and I sat down and we created a Goshen County School District 1 process framework. And for those of you that think standards-based grading is assessment heavy, all right, this is literally the way the system was meant to work in a standards-based world. Okay, we create common assessments for prioritized standards. Those standards come from our state. Okay, literally, we're supposed to take what the state gives us, and that's our priority standards, because that's what your students are being graded on. That makes sense, right? So then we go to pre-teach essential skills and hard to learn or hard to teach, difficult to learn criteria. So that's the HTDL there. And then we give a pre-assessment. We want to know where our students are at the beginning, because every kid is an individualized learning process, right? And so every kid's journey is different. We give a pre-assessment. We find out where they're at. Those students then get feedback. They self-assess based on exemplars. Hey, here's the goal that we want you to have. Here's where you're at. Now, how can we get you there? Kids are making plans for their future, just like they should be in our world, right? You go on, we got a tracking system, we're tracking students along the way, students are tracking themselves along the way, and then we have a plan for remediation or enrichment. I'll tell you, enrichment is probably the least utilized thing that we have in Goshen County. What do we do when a kid finally gets it? In the traditional world, we say, hey, keep going, good luck, all right? So then you can see, once again, weeks 2 to 4, designing our criteria. That's where we're going to present our daily lessons, best practice and effective instruction. We get together, try to research, find out what helps students the most. Hopefully we can enrich and differentiate. The formative 2 there, form B of the common assessment, that's literally, hey, where are we at? And if you get it, we want to know what's steady. All right, we don't want to waste your time learning things you already know. We want to move you and push you past where all students have, top students and bottom students have the top chance of learning, okay? So then we, once again, the whole process starts over feedback, self-exactly, tracking system, plan for enrichment. And then this common assessment here, right? That's kind of the end of the unit common assessment. Ladies and gentlemen, how many common assessments do you do? All right. The idea that there's 8 common assessments and kids should be able to test is not part of the thing. Now, is it part of the grading system we have now? Because there's some question on how we are currently practicing. Maybe, but the basis of standard-based grading is this. Just 2 assessments, really.
And
Go ahead.
so one of the misnomers that we keep hearing is kids shouldn't be able to take the final over 5 times, 6 times, 10. That is not part of this. The intent of this is that when a student takes the common assessment at the end, that's it. It's time to move on to the next unit. Teachers are now involved in pre-assessment, helping kids scaffold into the next lesson. So the way we learned about standards-based grading is there aren't 3 retests, there aren't 5 retests. There isn't 1 retest. If we follow this model. Now, do we follow it perfectly at Torrington Middle School? No. Is that the model we attempt to follow? Yes. So one of those arguments we feel is unfortunate. Because it doesn't need to be that way. Okay. Thanks.
So, man, that space bar, I'll tell you what, it was quick. So think about standards-based grading, all we're doing literally is we're communicating learning through standards, that's it. And all that does is provide our students and teachers with a clear journey for success, right? I've taught many students, I've been here 14 years now, I've been through the traditional model of grading, been through standards-based grading. I can tell you as a teacher, if I don't know where to get your students to, your students screwed. And I'm just being honest here, all right? Like, I literally need to know, here's the standard, here's how we can get your students there, and let's rock it, all right? And so think of students learning as a journey, all right? Homework, tests, and quizzes, that's all formative assessment. Now, don't get that mixed up with summative assessment. Summative is major one. Formatives are just little pieces of data that let your student and teacher know, hey, we're on our way, here's how you're progressing through your journey. So here's a standard-based kind of approach here. We're gonna look at traditional and standard and how that would differ real quick. Figure out what students know. So if we go through that whole Goshen County School District process and the way it should happen, students here are now have a pre-assessment. They took their assessment. That's what those kids are at, those 10 students, right? So those kids are getting feedback. They're starting to self-assess. They're setting their own goals, and together we're tracking progress. They're figuring out, hey, I know what I got to do to get to the goal that I need. Okay, so here's actual student work, right? They just took a common pre-assessment. These students are literally looking at standards now, creating goals for themselves and saying, okay, here's what I have to do next time when I take this, when we work on standard work. And so I got, a few pictures, you can see, here's what I didn't do. I can highlight underlying evidence that helped me make the correct inference. And then highlight anything, go figure, you have redirections, right? Some simple things like that. Then once again, now we're designing around criteria, daily lessons, that practices are happening in the classroom. Students are continuing to analyze their own data. And you can see how their journey is progressing, right? Some students are progressing well, we went from some 1 to some 2, student 4 still staying there. So now we're going to try to bring them in during flex to help remediate, not test them 5 times, right? Help them with standard work so that they can continue to grow and succeed. So then, Hattie said, when students self-evaluate their learning, teachers offer opportunities to elicit student insight in their own learning by reflecting on progress towards the goal, refining strategies, setting future goals, and using critical problem-solving skills to find meaning to thoughts and questions. That's a 1.33 correlation. Once again, that's 2 years of work for a student if done well in a school system. All right. Now, my wife does this with me, so just understand I'm currently going through this myself, and I'm unloading the dishwasher, but we're trying to get there. It's critical problem solving issues. All right, so here's the young lady. Let's see. I got a little video to see if it works, but these are students when done in a right setting. The thinking that takes place. Maybe. Pete, can we? Is there a way to do that? No. That's all right. We'll do it like this. So I'll summarize. This young lady here, if I turn my volume on, so we get echo. That's a nice. There we go. So this young lady here, what she's doing is she's going through and she's looking at her common assessment. She's making a plan of what she's going to do to remediate herself so that she can grow in the standard, right? And so she's going to work on finding evidence in the text. She marked what her score was, hoping that next time that I do my job with best practices, and she does her job by continuing to evaluate and self-assess, use exemplars to show her learning, and hopefully this score continues to grow. All right. Sorry, I wish we could do the sound, but This young man here, once again, he's assessing his writing this time with an exemplar of what a 3 or a 4 would look like. And unfortunately, it's sweet to hear, but this young man is clearly saying, I know I've got good evidence according to this exemplar. I need to make sure I work on my conclusion. My conclusion is very basic. And I use words like I or to conclude and things like that. And I'll tell you right now, this young man was a struggling learner and he's able to verbalize that kind of work because of the standards that were set before him. Then you have same thing here, same idea. That's a little exemplar that the kids would use. They literally can set a plan for themselves and show some growth. So I won't sit and waste your time since there's no volume, but it's pretty sweet if you hear it. Sometimes we'll have to try it. Formatives are prescriptive means to harvest student analysis of their data, goal setting, and progress. Formative assessment when teachers use it well and students understand the 0.9 correlation, which is equivalent to about 1 school year growth. If they, once again, if the system does it well. So we continue going on. We got our big common assessment. You can now see in the journey where these kids are all at because they're working. We're doing well, man. We got 2 2s, 3 2s. I got to do math. We got some 3s, and this young student here, student 9, they're at a 4 in big common assessment. So here's one of the biggest differences between traditional concept and standard-based concepts. Is now students who consistently have data that prove that they hit the target, they get to begin to go into some kind of extension so they can further their learning, right? And so if I move on, here's the common assessment. Teachers and students teachers and students have constantly looked at their data, creating goals. By the point we get to this common assessment, we should know exactly what our students are going to score. I'll be honest, and the students should know what they're going to score. They should be so comfortable because their pulse has constantly been on their learning that they should get exactly what they should score, right? Or understand what they should score. So there's 2 ways of looking at this. Here's the traditional model, right? So this person here, 4 4 4 4 4, they've been forced to continue to work because conceptually speaking, hey, good luck, sit in class, just do what everyone else is doing, right? And then these other students, as you can see, their average grades are out there. There's your letter grade. I don't care about the average grade or the letter grade, right? Well, the average in a sense, I don't think it's average, but grading is not how we report that. That's not a big deal. All right, now what I want to point out here too is this student here at 9.3 got a 1 on a common pre-assessment. That one still counts towards that student's grade. All right, we're talking a month and a half ago. I'm now a different person. That 1 is still harming that student's grade in a traditional model. Now, I don't know, but if Marv is still, Mr. Hammond, sorry, was still grading me on my first year of teaching, I'd be off finding a different job probably, right? So in the standards-based world, it's all about data in learning. So I wouldn't say that much should probably count against that student. You see student 7, same thing. That 1, especially when it ended with a 3, a 3, a 3, a 4, that 1 probably shouldn't count against, right? When it ended with unit summative assessment are the only adequate means of assessing students. Well, teachers and students discover the deficits in learning too late in the process. So here's what a standards-based approach would kind of look like, right? So the biggest difference here, you can see the 4, he's now extended, he's got his 4 because he's proved all he needs to know for this unit. We're not going to waste his time. And as a parent, I want to know my kids continually being pushed, right? If you look over here, student 5, he's had 2 4s at the beginning of the unit, had a 3 2 2 2. Well, consistently, that kid isn't showing, that student isn't showing that he's being consistent with the data. So as my job as a teacher, I need to use professional judgment in the sense of, wait a minute. You, on a standards-based grading or in a traditional grading world, right? You would have been 2.87. You would have had a 2+. I'm sorry, and that doesn't make any sense to me because the last few here, I don't have the data to show your C, so or that you have that, so you're a 2, right? So there is some teacher professional judgment that happens, but it's because of the journey of the student. It's because of where they started and where they end And we put that all into consideration, and the students are part of that process too. Hey, where do you think you're at right now? Can you explain to me why? And so they're all part of this learning that's taking place. So if we compare. Oh, yeah, here's the other one, like. I'm glad you guys brought up social emotional learning, right? So this student here at the bottom, right? They got a 4, they got a 3, a 3. You can see that their journey, they're progressing, they're learning the standards, and all of a sudden, common assessment happens, they got a 2. Well, in the traditional world, guess what? Sorry, you're screwed. That's just the way it is. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. But in a standard-based grading, well, we're gonna look at that and say, you know what? Your dog got hit by a car, your mom and dad just got divorced. Who knows what just happened, right? And so teachers can look at this and say, okay, listen, the data here shows me well enough that this student has these data points that said here 3.5. We'll give them 3.5 B plus, because they've earned that. Not give it to them, they've earned that opportunity, right? And so when you put these together, maybe the beauty of the internet. Hey, there we go. So I guess my question is, which system best represents student learning and achievement? Right? Is it a traditional model where we're going to count everything against them? Or is it a standard-based model where students have a chance to make mistakes, learn along the way, and progress? And together we reach a consensus as far as my professional judgment, where they think they're at, and together that equals some kind of scoring output. Now, I don't care what that score is, again, A, B, C, D, 90%, whatever, right? But in the traditional model or whatever, of course, this is where we're at. Another concern, students aren't held accountable for doing their classwork and homework. I get how big of a concern that is, and here's the reason why we separate that, right? If I'm a business owner and I have a student come in and, you know, I'm interested in knowing how hard of a working student that is. I say, hey, bring me your report card in next time. I want to see how things are going. They bring it in, they're at 90%. I think, man, that's a hardworking student, right? But there are no like information on how that student works inside of the classroom on it, just like that report card from 1965. The opposite is you bring it in, I see, man, you're getting all 4 great, but you're a 2 on responsibility. You're a 2 on coming to class on time. I don't want somebody that can't come into my job on time or things like that. So there's an opportunity for community to be able to say, hey, let's encourage our students to grow. Let's encourage them to finish strong. Let's meet them where they're at. And starting from middle school, the consequence of not doing the work is doing the work. All right. And literally have first period study hall, students missing 1 or more assignments. You have to finish the work. If you don't do that during that period elective, guess what? You're going to come in and you're going to finish the work then. And then on top of that, if you also want to be an athlete, represent your school, you got to finish the work in order to do that. So, I mean, there's a bunch of opportunities where students have to get the work completed. And so they should be held accountable. We have a clear homework tracking system that teachers communicate, to put in if the students missing their work or not. And then from there, we work as a group collaboratively to make sure students are getting the work completed. And what does homework really show? I think personally, homework can be a little bit unfair to students because if I give the students some work, they take it home. I don't know who's doing it. I mean, in today's world, we just don't know. A parent could be doing it, a sibling could be doing it. I don't know if the students, what part of the student's work is actually in there. So when I come back and if I grade that in a traditional model, I'm giving the students a false grade because I don't literally know who just did that work, right? Or you could be me, I'll just be honest here. You could be me back in 6th grade and I'll be like, hey, you do half of the math column, go do the other half and copy your work, you copy mine, and both in good grade, who knows, right? But so you don't know if they copied their friend's work. Standard-based world homework is considered practice. They're responsible for doing it. They have to do it. There's no question of them not doing it. But it's practice so that they can learn from their mistakes. It's not a score that could misrepresent. Sorry, Brian Foster's in the way. Student understanding, but it's just there so that we can make sure that kids understand what we know, so that we know where they're at also. So some key takeaways, hopefully, after all my rambling. True standards-based learning does not require retests. Instead, it's a constant measurement of student growth and achievement towards clearly defined standards. We've muddied the waters, let's be honest. All right, it's got a bad name because of that. And so if we can get back to where it's supposed to be, I can guarantee you that your students will probably succeed better than they ever have. And they'll probably be better adults, because as we know from the awesome presentations we've had kids talk about, hey, man, we're gonna talk about social emotional learning. We're talking about our inner selves. We got goals set for ourselves. We're doing the same thing with standardization. All right, so that'd be a sweet collaborative process there. 2, requiring students to master each semester's power standards, rating student achievement. We have so many things that kids honestly probably don't need to know. We spent more time going a mile wide than an inch mile deep and an inch wide versus going a mile wide and an inch deep. Our students will definitely succeed more, and that standards-based training will help with that. And homework and classwork completion must be required and reported separately from academic achievement. For middle school students, we have a separate one for respect and responsibility. And so, Mr. Hammond.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thanks you. My mom.
If we drop standards-based grading tomorrow, here's what we'd have. We'd have standards-based teaching because the state tells us what standards to teach. We'd have standards-based learning because the students have to learn the standards. What people have been concerned about is standards-based reporting. What does it look like? And we try to address those issues because they're real. The state does standards-based grading. The state gives a rating to each school. The state does standards-based reporting for each student. We send home report cards to our students from the state. And it says, on this standard, your child did this. On this standard, your child did this. Standards-based teaching, learning, and reporting are not going away. Even if we dump standard-based grading, as we know it in Goshen County tomorrow. So the reality is, what kind of reporting do we want? So thank you for listening.
One thing I just want to touch on right before on the question is just make sure we have a takeaway of the why do we have retakes right now? So it's not a part of standards-based grading. That was something that we actually instituted well before we instituted standards-based grading. The other piece of that is we're not there yet. That piece that Josh shared in regards to the layout, it's not there in every class. And there is an opportunity there for students to revisit, demonstrate that they've worked to understand that and retake. The only time in which we as adults or other times in which in our lifetimes are not given an opportunity to improve upon that. The only time we can find that is in undergrad work. Outside of that, that is the only time in our lives in which we're not demonstrating an opportunity to demonstrate that learning after we've gotten into taking more information. I just wanted to clarify that. The other big piece that I just want to really point out that Josh did a great job of sharing is something that we talked about with our student representatives long ago, goal setting and advocating for their learning. That is a huge, huge piece of it. So thank you very much for that presentation.
So we will move down to number 4, presentation by the alternative calendar committee.
And as Mr. Gilchrist, if I could have you kind of introduce with your Mr. Williams, maybe he was hiding behind his computer, so I didn't see him over there. So we had 2 co-chairs for this alternative calendar committee. I was approached earlier in the year about taking a look again at some alternative calendars, and these gentlemen were kind enough to volunteer to be co-chairs of this committee. This process is a starting point right now. In this process, Wyoming, as part of their calendar, counts hours or minutes and days as we look at a traditional calendar. They provide an option for school districts to look at alternative calendars. Part of that process that a board and community must go through is taking a look at alternatives and then having 2 public hearings based on that proposal before going to the state in March to ask for permission to have an alternative calendar. This is the first stepping stone in that process. This is not a vote by the board this evening to go in any direction. This is a presentation from the group offering different ideas and adjustments to calendars. Two that are specifically date related and one that is specifically tied to trimester or semester calendar system that works and integrates with any system that we would choose to go forward with. Then in December, this will be revisited, and then the board will make a determination as to whether to move forward with public hearings and hear from the public in regards to these proposals and what information should be gathered. Then following those public hearings would then be a final vote to move forward in submitting an alternative calendar. So I just want to get across that this is not a decision time period for the board. You not are expected to make a decision, nor is anything on the agenda asking you to make a decision. The piece for this information is at the end during the board time for topics for discussion. And that will be a time in which you can share with the committee members any questions that you still have that may be lingering after the presentations, or anything that you kind of feel would be important for them to know to continue that work as we progress to that December meeting. Board members have any questions in regards to that? I just want to make sure that everybody understood that. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Williamson to go, Chris.
With Mr. Kramer stated, Mr. Gilchrist and I were voluntold that we would be both co-chairs of this committee. We have about 22 people, I believe, from the community, teachers, board members, parents. I'm missing a group there. At least those three groups represented on the committee. We met several times, starting in early October. We've done a lot of research about different types of calendars, as Mr. Kramer stated. There is one idea that is going to come to you tonight that would need state approval. Actually, the other two that we're going to talk about tonight would not need state approval because we would still go 175 days. Well, I guess one, because the one has both 4 and a 5-day option. If we go to anything less and we need to go by hours, we won't get state approval. If we stay on 175 days, which one of them or 1.5 will, we would just continue with on. It would just change our calendar. So
this kind of was born out of salary relations last year. Some of the work that we're doing was moved to Friday afternoons, and this is a way to explore to make that more functional. It's the collegial work, the PLC work we do at the building level, the problem solving team work that we do looking at individual kids and trying to create an opportunity to make that as effective as it possibly can be. So that was kind of where this was born from. Tim and I had the pleasure of being on this 6 or 7 years ago after suggesting out there, we begrudgingly agreed to be on this again. There are some legitimate concerns with any alternative calendar. I think we addressed the majority of those. I think in all of these calendars you're going to see they have the kids' best interest in mind. That was the lens in which we looked at that going forward. So as you see these, know that was where this came from and what the intent was.
So our first one tonight will be Stacy Kramer with trimester and Mr. Legal. And this group will present on 4-day, and then Mr. Borington and I will present on we would call it, I guess, extended year. People call it year round, but year round starts in July. We're not going that far in more of an extended year. So Stacy, if you want to start us off.
I'm definitely not a solo to experience. Maximum fighting and I want to help the others too. So we got a good team going. So we're going to present the trimester schedule. 5 days in, so like Mr. Roper said, it wouldn't require, it doesn't reduce the number of student days. It's only 175 student days and the number of teacher days are the same also. So it actually, we tried to fill the calendar with almost identical to what this year's calendar looks like. But some of the advantages and just what we currently have and then the advantages of what it's going to
Sorry, guys. I think for some, it's probably going to help for the microphone. So you can take it off there and whichever, if you're more comfortable taking it off and having your hand, feel free. I know it helps for some people.
Okay. So what you're seeing behind you, there's part of it covered up, but you have the full handout for members. This is just a comparison between what we're currently doing with the semester, and then I'll move the little white box in a minute and show you how it will be different with the trimester. So with our current schedule, we've got 18-week semesters. The students have an opportunity to earn 8 credits per year, which in their 4-year career at high school, they can earn 32 credits. They need 28 to graduate. The daily course load on our current schedule is the kids are going on 8 classes per day. The contact time, we have a Monday through Thursday for 49 minutes, and then on Fridays for 34. One of the drawbacks to our schedule is that if a student fails a class, then they're unable to retake it until the following school year, because that class is only offered once a semester, once a school year. Failed courses from the previous year are doubled up in the following year. So what we meant by that is that if a freshman fails their freshman science class, their sophomore year, they're put back into the freshman science class and their sophomore science class, to try to keep them on track for graduation. With our current schedule, there is more of a need for summer school for credit recovery, because that's really the only option unless the student takes it the following year. The scheduling right now is not super flexible, just because if there's a singleton class, so a class is only offered once a semester, or maybe an advanced class where there might be one section. If you have those 2 classes offered at the same time, the kids are going to have to choose one or the other. Individuals that transfer to Goshen County, some of this, it's harder for them to pick up credits just because of when the classes are offered and the limited time in which they're offered. Right now, class sizes range anywhere from 8 students to 24, just because of the restricted schedules, and sometimes even more than that. And in the classroom, in the trenches, that's a lot of kids to have in year to try to manage all at once. And our current schedule, teachers have more students to manage at one time, shorter class periods, and when I say short class periods, I mean in comparison to the trimester. It's harder for the project-based classes, the classes that might need a longer duration of time to have the students really get in depth and work on what they're needing to work on. Our current schedule also aligns with current elementary 6-week grading verification. So that's kind of the thing about our current schedule. In comparison, so the trimester schedule, trimesters, instead of an 18-week semester, there are 3 12-week trimesters. The kids have the opportunity to earn 9 credits per year, which that is a total of 36 credits possible. They would still be 28 to graduate. Their daily course load is less, so instead of having 8 classes a day, they would have 6, which that was a concern that was kind of brought up, and 8 classes is a lot too much. The contact time with the trimester changes Monday through Thursday. The kids would be in class for 65 minutes Monday through Thursday and 45 on a Friday. One of the great things about a trimester is that, and I'll show you in a minute what the schedule looks like, but you have the flexibility to offer a class more than once. So you could offer first semester biology the first trimester, and then you can offer a combination of first semester biology, and then another teacher could offer second semester biology. Or a student, if they're in an extracurricular sporting event, maybe in the fall, and they know they're going to be missing a lot of school, the trimester schedule allows them to play around with their schedule. So maybe they don't take some of their heavy hitter classes that first trimester and move them to second and third. So there's a little bit more flexibility with that trimester schedule because those classes are offered more than once. With our trimester schedule, it would eliminate the doubling up of 4 classes. So if a student failed first semester science, the first trimester, that class would be offered again second semester or second trimester, so that student could retake that class the following track. Information is a lot fresher, and it kind of helps remedy the feeling of I have to start all over. it's more of a, I just need to continue on where I left off from my previous class and finish and improve on what I didn't know before. This would also reduce the need for summer school credit recovery, because that credit recovery could be done during school. And I've kind of already touched on the more flexible course offerings, but with the trimester schedule, we could offer more elective classes, the classes more often during the year. And that would be just another way to help bolster and support our elective courses as well as for in the singletons. Transfer students coming in would be able to pick up credits as those classes are offered more often in class sizes, because those classes are offered more frequently. Would be able to balance out and wouldn't have such students stream over student count. One of the other things is that teachers would have fewer students to manage at one time. The longer class periods allow an easier time for those project-based classes, those classes that need a longer contact time, science, art, woods, auto, etc. To help them get the depth that they're looking for and give the students time to process the projects that they're working on. Trimester schedule also aligns with the elementary school grading periods as well, so there's no change there. This is just a sample day-to-day schedule of what it would look like. So the kids would be in 6 periods, our current schedule. Just kidding, trimester schedule. With 65-minute classes, 6 classes a day, 5 minutes passing, and on Fridays we have 4:45. So that's just kind of what the day-to-day time breakdown would look like. And this is what a schedule would look like. So we just put this together like a possible schedule. So the students could take their core, and the first semester, depending on the classes, so if the class had to be taught sequential, then of course they would take the A portion of that class first, and then the B portion, etc. And that would just take some coordination with the teachers deciding, does my first semester now need to be taught before second semester, or could they be taught independent? I can speak for biology, my first semester and second semester, it doesn't matter if you take second semester before first, they would be interchangeable. And so, that's why you see on the second try how it could be physical science A or B offered, or both, depending on the number of teachers that have the ability to teach that class. Yeah. We also put together a trimester schedule that you're going to see a proposal for a 4-day week. So the time doesn't change a whole lot on a 4-day week. The class times are increased by 5 minutes, but it's still the same period day. But we put this together at the trimester just to demonstrate that it would work as a 4-day and also as a 5-day, 5 extra minutes on the schedule for a 4-day. And what it does extend school day for students and teachers, which is to basically equate out the number of minutes you have to teach in that period or in that course. That's because it's one of those calendars that we need to state approval because we are under 175 student days with this calendar again. It's not necessarily a 4-day week for teachers. Stuff that can be worked out later, but just to present that the whole idea of the trimester is flexible on 5-day or 4-day with little change. But that 70-minute period brings us to 65-minute period over the course of that, of course, does that up. And then these are just some things to consider for any alternative schedule, really. And these are just some things that in our discussions kind of came out, and that could possibly be for further discussion and consideration later with alternative calendars, but the staffing would need to be creative, so departments would need to get together and decide what are the most important things that I need to teach. Can my course fit in a trimester, or does my course need to be across 2 trimesters or 3? That's just, again, going to require some collaboration and creativity with staffing. Their busing was brought up in our conversations, and so that would, of course, be a discussion that's had later on with
with the board and the transportation department. That these are just some things that we thought would be good to consider with really any alternative calendar, not just the trimesters. So finding that for your consideration, and Stacy we'll talk to you about what the calendar might look like.
So in the essence of, I speak too fast. So this is the 5-day calendar based off of the calendar we had this year. So essentially the same starting date, we did the Wednesday. 5 days ahead of the student start. It would be a really release day. On that 23rd, trying to accommodate for just keeping it consistent with what we've done in the past, plus with the way kindergarten does the stagger start. I think it would keep consistency there too. It's a little bit maybe different with some of the days off that we might have throughout the year, but we Labor Day off, the 9th of October we had off as a parent teacher compensation day. And the end of the trimester ends up being at the 16th of November. And that trimester is 47 full days with 13 release days. So Monday to Thursday, we would go to school to about 8 to 4, and on Fridays it would be like 4 to 8. And then Saturday we would teacher with day. Or such a semester. These are thrown in there just to balance out the number of days in front of you. So then we were. But it puts into 30 minutes to we get 2-week Christmas break. And then coming back January 2nd for teachers and teacher leave day. More just to keep that consistent for students. Currently, with what we've done for the over Christmas breaks, starting the second off. You can send that on the third. But as far as the, we come on 3 weeks of being in the trimester 4. It's a purposeful day. And coming up to the 29th, then February, at the end of that trimester, actually, what day and a week-long spring break like we had this year, the 11th there is the teacher the apprenticeship operating on, and as we have it now. Easter, Good Friday, and Monday off, at the end of March, April, and graduation is the same. And we have student days and after graduation for that week, and then we on. So we should go on just. So that's the 5-day calendar. There's 4-day calendar. There's leeway in there. I don't want to say it's quick, but but again, starting on the 23rd, the 23rd, 24th, and first, remember on this song, we don't. You can do it by students. But accommodating again with that, so there's not a potential, I think, and we'll consider the benefits. That would be important to benefit in the first week. Considering the Labor Day off. The 22nd and the 20th in October. The teacher would be there all 3 weeks. Put in there as Friday the teacher will be present. Aviation, prevention, extra on top of the school day. They help keep them on track. The next one is for this calendar, because we want to see and we still have 2 weeks at Christmas. We have students and stuff re-evaluated in December, and all honestly, this one we do this basketball for this year. People, people would say it might be a little bit technical for all that, because that's not the first. Again, that's a little flexible, arbitrary. Again, coming back, teachers on the 2nd, through the 3rd. All of these days, again, are no student days. the first thing that they're in here, and giving the program in here, but just looking at challenges or all the athletics about. It's not to go to the challenge yet, we don't know all those, we didn't sign up yet. But to the students, they're staying, sometimes they do the other night, and the time is still the night, which your work days, that they do first. And this is going on very much the same as Friday calendar, just write it off. But it's a page here, I'm gonna go there. And third. And then. And then. That's not very. And the final student, students are really different. So. Just to kind of give you an idea of what's different between the two. No, if you have any questions, I don't want to go over anything. But I think it's all in your packet too, so. So feel free to.
Mr. Weigel.
I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time tonight to listen to our presentations. I had the opportunity of working with the group to put together our 4-day school week. The all calendar for the school day, 4-day school week. The previous two districts I worked in were actually on the 4-day school week, so I kind of have experience in that. When I was in Niobrara County, we were actually on a 5-day school week and transitioned to the 4. So I've had that experience of going from 5 to 4. And then when I was in Cook County, it was a 4-day school week. Like Mr. Gilchrist said, there's pros and cons to any alternative calendar. And I think those are things you have to look at, kind of weigh.
That's a great question.
Join the Zoom meeting.
Huh?
Did you join the Zoom meeting?
I was just hoping I was 5 foot 5 feet. So I can kind of just go over the pros and cons. We won't put it up there. We kind of came up with a list. And I will say our pros kind of outweighed our cons currently. Some of the pros we came up with as a staff. 4-day school week is going to attract employees and retain quality employees. I can speak for this. Mr. Gilchrist had this experience at the beginning of the year. We had a science position open. We offered that position, I believe, to 2 individuals, and both individuals turned it down and took jobs. And the reasoning was because the other schools were on a 4-day school. So we had 2 qualified applicants that were in the positions, and they both said no, and that was their reason. So that's one there. More contact time in class for students with teachers. When you move to the 4-day school week, you do have to extend your day. In order to meet state requirements when it comes to hours, you're looking at 8 o'clock start time and a 4 o'clock release. Now you can stagger that at the end of the day because elementary students have less hours required throughout the year that they actually have to meet. I believe at the high school, it's 1,000, right around 1,000 hours a year. 1,100. That's got to be a little less than that.
1050.
So, it is extending the day, so the class periods would be extended, it would be long. Less need for subs and better staff attendance. When you move to the 4-day school week, a lot of your major activities are on Fridays. Extracurricular activities are scheduled on Fridays. Right now, currently, I think prime example would be Lingle and Southeast. We had regional volleyball and regional volleyball and
It's regional volleyball, and then we travel like 10 feet from Montana for our regional or state playoff game in football. On that Friday, I had 20 vacancies, 11 of them were unfilled for that Friday. So needless to say, we had to get very creative to even have a school day that day. And with Southeast and Lingle and becoming more so with Torrington, with the surrounding schools doing that, obviously, if you're going to host a quad or some sort of event, you're trying to recruit help. It's a lot easier to get people there on a Friday than it is on a Saturday. So that's one of the considerations. A lot of our surrounding schools that are on a 4-day week are moving a lot of their activities to that Thursday night, Friday format.
Well, I'm talking, I'm gonna try to join the board. actually post the calendar for you guys at the end. Also with that, there's more planning time for staff. You extend the day, you extend the periods, it actually is gonna give teachers longer time to plan. So they'll actually have more planning time. That one planning hour they're gonna get throughout the day is actually gonna be a little bit longer, so it's gonna give them that opportunity. Less meetings for teachers to be pulled out of the school to attend. Right now, we have a lot of things going on in the district, and we're having a lot of meetings throughout the week. And we're pulling staff and putting subs in the classrooms. And I'm a firm believer, the teacher needs to be in the classroom. And that's what they paid to do, that's why they went into this field. They love working with kids, they want to be in the classrooms. And if we're pulling them and putting subs in there, our subs are qualified. That's not probably the career path they chose. Some of them are retired teachers. That doesn't mean they've always taught that content. So keeping the teachers in the classroom is huge. You can move to doing more of those things on Fridays. You can provide more interventions and enrichments on Fridays. With this schedule, we can open it up so we have interventions and enrichment days built into the schedule. So kids can come in. I know the high school group that was here tonight that presented, great opportunity for them, clubs to meet, things to do on those Fridays. It's taking less time out of the day to pull those and have those meetings if we can set them up on Fridays. This is kind of student driven. There's less traveling for athletic and extracurricular activities during the week, except Fridays. Most schools that went to a 4-day school week, most of your activities are set up on Fridays. Middle school, that's kind of a tricky thing. It's always a little bit harder. It's just kind of how it works. They kind of schedule theirs throughout the week, but you could push back those times and have students in the building. Transportation provided for students who will be using interventions and enrichments. We could do that on Friday. We have talked with Mr. Kramer, and that is a possibility that we could still get those kids here to provide those opportunities. And also transportation for, no. As a school district, it does boost morale. It increases school spirit, allowing staff, students to attend those extracurriculars on Fridays. When we have all those athletes and people who are involved in all those extracurricular activities, we have a select group of students that stay behind. This would actually open the door if there was something in town. They would be able to participate, or they could even travel to go see their peers. Graduation rates have actually increased in comparable school districts. The committee actually reached out to numerous districts, and that was one of the things they had mentioned, was that their graduation rates increased, their attendance rates increased, and their state assessment scores actually increased for a school. Schools have been implementing 4-day school weeks since the 1980s. So it's not a new concept. And currently 26 school districts in Wyoming have moved to a 4-day school. So that's over half the state of Wyoming. I think there's 42 districts in the state of Wyoming. 26 are currently on a 4-day school. It could be a possible cost saving to the district. Not having the lights on now. Also, another thing with that is maintenance and your custodial staff. Having a Friday off to get those things done without students in the building is huge. They have a full day to come in, take care of things they need to take care of. Also clean the building, especially right now we have strep throat and a lot of things going around throughout our schools. We're getting hit pretty hard. Deep cleaning on Friday, it would open up that opportunity. Families can schedule appointments on Fridays and not miss school. And also we could have increased family time. They could spend more time with their kids, traveling weekends, doing things as families. Now, there is cons with this. It is slightly longer school days. Athletic practices would have to start at a later time. So kids would be getting to practice later, they would be getting done with practice later. Possibility of employees losing hours. We've discussed this. If this was a possibility and you guys decided to move forward, I think this is something we could work around. Trying to get staff in on those enrichment Fridays, allowing them to come in and work with students and still trying to get all those hours. Childcare is going to come up. It's going to be a big one. Also with that though, high school students and middle school students are out of the building on Fridays. It would open up the opportunity for them to provide childcare as well. So that could work both ways. And on Fridays with this, if we weren't in class on Friday, in school, there would be no breakfast, no lunch offered on Fridays. So those were kind of the cons we came up with. As far as how it would look. I gotta join the meeting.
One of the things that was, well, by far the most vocal problem from the last time we did this was the child care. As part of this committee, we had the practice program people in Ensasato and Jessica Arnish come in, and there was a conversation about the ability to write into their grant, the ability to come in on those Fridays, either for a half day on Friday, or there was even talk about a full day on Friday where they could provide the services they do currently. Now, part of that revolves around staffing, and what Mr. Weigel was talking about with our current staff, anybody that would be short would potentially have the ability to come in and work on those Fridays, either for the days that we provide enrichment and intervention for students, or as part of that practice program, lack of better word, childcare. I think that was a huge thing that needed to be addressed from the last time we went down this road. And I think that practice program, their ability to write a grant that would support that is huge in making this successful. We know the hardship of especially our K-5 parents having to find daycare as they're working on those Fridays, because there isn't necessarily a shift to a 4-day week within the community. Although that has happened in some cases, but that obviously wouldn't be how things start out. So I think that was a big thing to address. And I think this should make that part very successful.
Yeah. Well, I have chosen. So when we developed this, we really spent a lot of time looking at extracurricular events and state regional activities. So what we have is pretty much starting our PD, professional development, school days before the year starts, be the 15th, like it currently is now. We would have 3 days, Friday off. We'd have one, probably the 21st would be an in-building day like we did currently this year. And then we'd start school on the 22nd. That Friday, we have it listed, all the Fridays that are listed on here, you'll see, I just have building, they're listed as PD, building meetings or city. I feel like that could kind of be decided as the district, how we want to spend that time and use it effectively. All the red days that are listed would be Fridays, that would be no staff and no students. The majority of those days are listed that way because there is something major happening. If you look in September, we do have 2.7 off, big tenants. With the calendar, we couldn't hit everything. State golf was the one event we couldn't fit in to take that Friday off. We thought the percentages that might be affected from that was very small. So that's the reason we chose to keep the day. Purple days would be enrichment and interventions. So we actually have first quarter ending on October 19th. And we did this at every quarter and every semester. We did an enrichment and intervention day following the quarter, the last day of the quarter and the last right before the end of the semester. We figured it'd be beneficial. Quarter ends, we could get students in, make sure we got everything we needed from them before the end of that quarter, before the conferences. Also, the same thing with semesters. If you see on here, we actually didn't take time off for a teacher equivalency day for parent-teacher conferences. We figured with parent-teacher conferences, we scheduled them on a week where they would have Friday off. There'd be no staff and no students in the building. So there's actually no days built into that. In December, we started Christmas break. The first semester would end the 22nd. It'd be the end of quarter 2, and we wouldn't come back until the 8th of January. Now, I know how we took it off. It's kind of odd taking the first week in January, which normally doesn't happen. But when you look at a calendar, It seems like we always have a lot of days in the second semester, way more compared to the first semester. And I think that's because we always seem to take 2 weeks off in December, at the end of December. If we split them between the 2 days, it would even out the number of days between the two. Also, we would end before Memorial Day. So our last day of school would still be the 24th. So it would pretty much be the exact same calendar that we're currently on. We would start around the same time and end around the same time. Now, I know with the number of days we would have out, a lot of people say all the time, we're only doing, and I have it down here. So student days would be 148 and staff days would be 165. And everyone says, well, right now we're currently contracted for 185 days. And now our teachers would be actually working less. But when you extend the day, teachers would be required to be there from 7:30 to 4:30. So it's actually a 9-hour day. So if you take 9 hours and you do the math at 165 days, we're actually working the same number of hours in the two comparisons. Actually, with this, it comes out a little higher than what we are at 185 contracted days. On the blue days, and I figured this in for hours, because I went by hours instead of days. All the blue days and purple days would be from 7:30 to 2:30, except all the ones at the beginning of the year, which would be 7:30 to 4:30. So starting August 25th is when we'd actually make the transition, start going from 7:30 to 2:30, because that's when sports would start, and it would give people time to travel to events. I have everything else marked on there. I don't know if you guys have any questions, you want to wait until later.
On Monday, that we go to school.
Yes. That is one other thing. So there's going to be 2 times in the year where we take the Monday off. Easter break, it'd be a 4-day weekend, and Labor Day weekend, we take a 4-day weekend. We would actually have a full day of school on those Fridays. It's the only 2 times in the year that we actually have that. So the other thing with this, if we ever wanted to go back to having snow days and having regular snow days, we could build snow days into the calendar. So we weren't extending the school year at the very end. We could just schedule them. If there was ever a snow day before this date, we would make it up here, and that would become a 5-day week. We could also keep it as a virtual snow day if that works, and continue on that path. That's all I have. Thank you. Sure. Oh, yeah, unshare. I don't want a new share. Stop sharing. Stop sharing. Technology's hard.
So Mr. Bullington and I worked on what we would call an extended year school year calendar. Has 175 days in it. Still has 175 days in it, so we would not need approval from the state to go to there. A couple of reasons that we looked at this one is currently we use summer school during the summer to catch kids up. But a lot of times they're missing stuff from the first quarter, and that was a long time ago. With an extended year, or extended school year, we would go a quarter, take 2 weeks off, okay? But those 2-week breaks, if you're doing great, yeah, you get the 2 weeks. If you're not doing great, you're gonna get 1, because the other week you're coming to what we would use summer school money for, to remediate first quarter stuff immediately after the first quarter. Second quarter stuff, when you get there, so the first semester we have a break, and then we would do it again after the third quarter, so that we can catch kids up quicker. Okay, maybe things wouldn't snowball on them as quickly. So one of the reasons for, year-round school or extended year, school calendars is to reduce summer slide. We live in a lower socioeconomic, it was brought up a lot last time, let's just put it that way. That, we have a lot of lower socioeconomic kids. And one of the things that is bad for low socioeconomic kids is long summer break. The summer slide gets them hard. It's our special education population. So there's actually a correlation. Martin and Josh used adding research a lot earlier. The correlation of summer vacation is -0.02. So they're losing education during the summer. So we would remediate throughout the year, like I said, more evenly distributed vacation. A lot of families, we have a lot more families than we used to. This is my 23rd year in the district. We have a lot more families now taking 5, 8, 10-day vacation during the middle of school. Because that's when mom and dad can go. So they take their kids out of school and go on vacation. That's their right. This would give them some more break to try to fit that in, get some more in the fall. We have the Christmas break, and then we have one in the spring. So there would be more evenly distributed vacation time for people to go there. I addressed the lower socioeconomic. Goshen County is depending on which website you look at, and there's a lot of them out there. The one we found was 12.8% poverty rate compared to a state average of 11.4. This kind of gives kids and staff a chance to recharge every once in a while. Okay, right now, I'll tell you, with the way we're going right now, well, Mr. Gilchrist and I went to a security presentation in Laramie today. I've never been this tired this early in the year in my life. And I know I'm getting older. I have something to do with it. Okay, but it is real. We are working. The teachers are working their tails off, and they're wearing out quickly. We need to look at something. I don't know what, but something to help with that. So that allows students and staff a chance to recharge. And it gives a little bit of an incentive for kids. If I'm proficient in my standards and I have my work done, I'm going to get a 2-week break. Instead, if not, I'm coming back a week early or I'm staying a week late, however we decide to do that. And I get to work in small groups with our teachers using summer school money to get my remediation done. And like I said, this would not have to go through the alternative calendar process. Bonds, and the biggest one that we're going to share, because you'll see this in a minute, we would start August 14th. That is the first day of state fair. And that is one of the biggest bonds that there's going to be. The other thing it really messes with is during the middle of right at the end of volleyball. There's a couple weeks there where we're not in school where volleyball never happened in track. We do it in basketball and wrestling all the time. For some reason, when we talk about doing it in other sports, it causes a lot of anxiety. That would be the word. So state fair, I asked a couple of the fair board members approximately how many kids they feel like participate.
By actually attending is what we wanted.
Yeah, well, there was 2 numbers. So those that participated, state fair was about 100. So less than 10% of our kids. And then about half of those attend in person. Like your Mr. Bullington's son, he did a project and sent it to the state fair. He did not go with it to the state fair. So those numbers vary based on who you're talking to, but we did talk to the fair board members to try to get that data. The breaks in fall seasons, it is harder for students to have a summer job. It does reduce some of the major maintenance breaks that we currently use to do projects at school. And it does, it would take a major shift in thinking by all of our stakeholders.
No, when you look over the calendar, I'll talk to it. Now, when we look at that and we discuss the shrinking of summer break, it seems significant. When you see the calendar, it really isn't. It really isn't that significant as far as the change, but you know, in education, when we start discussing school calendars and school schedules, there really is only one piece of settled research as far as what it makes a bad school calendar, and it's summer vacation. You know, if you look at 4 days, you look at block scheduling, traditional, the research is all over the place. Really the only piece of settled data, settled research is that summer vacation is a negative. For instance. So yeah, like Mr. Williams said, we would be starting on the 14th. I'm not going to talk through the whole thing. The reds are vacation days. You will notice those 2 chunks in October and March. That blue highlighted one is what we consider a great opportunity for that remedial work. You know, we got a student that in the first quarter is struggling. It makes 0 sense to wait until June to work with that struggling student in summer school. So we wanted to give that opportunity for those teachers right then, right now. We have a student struggling first quarter. Okay, we have them in that remedial week. We get them the tools necessary to get taught right back up, and they are back off and running in late October there. And like we said, it would provide some of that incentive. If I know that I get a 2-week vacation, if I'm proficient in everything, you can guarantee a lot of students are going to be making sure that they're proficient come October 13th. So yeah, we do start the 14th of August. In this example, we would be done the 31st of May. So we're still not reaching into June. We have the exact same number of school days for students, and we actually have the exact same number of staff days built in. We would have to use those remedial weeks, maybe creatively with some of our staff work, because there are 4 staff days that we included in those, 2 at the start, the 16th and 17th of October, and then the 18th and 19th of March, that we would do some of our staff professional development. How that looks with that remedial work it would be interesting to see what we do there. But by doing that, we were able to start only a week earlier than we currently are and end still by June 1st. Anything else?
And like I said at the beginning, the committee really looked or tried to look very hard at what would give students an opportunity to be in the building as much as we could possibly have them in the building, and the same for staff. We have a lot of things going on, as Mr. Gilchrist alluded to, where staff is out of the building, and it is getting harder and harder to find subs. Mr. Bullington and I have both subbed multiple times this year, which takes us out of our normal role. We have combined classes. We send classes to the library, and the librarian watches them do their work with some of the college classes that we have. We've had to get really creative in what we're doing, and so we need to find some solutions to that. So whatever you guys want to do, we will look at it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys. That brings us to number 5, discussion of Wyoming School Board Association proposed resolutions for 2022 delegate assembly.
So in your packet, you'll have reference on page 10, the considerations for the delegate assembly. Our representative is Carlos, who goes to the Wyoming School Board Association meeting and determines what direction or what voice we have put forth through our membership in the Wyoming School Board Association. So the first one, as you can see on page 10, it talks about the affirm and individual consideration for resolutions. I'm going to talk about each resolution that we talk about. So the bottom of page 10, one of the resolutions being asked for support is BOCES as LEAs to receive funding. So BOCES, for those that are not familiar with that, that's the Board of Cooperative Educational Services. So they act as a local education association. So they are regional. Right now, they do not have the ability to and receive funding for underfunded programs. So they can't ask for assistance through grants or any of those situations. This resolution is not intended to enable the BOCES to become classified as Wyoming school districts. It does not intend to have them take money from school districts. It is not intended for them to pit school districts against BOCES. What it is intended to do is funding for the needed funding for underfunded programs while reducing the need to increase costs for the district. So they host specialized programs and services with highly qualified staff. And what they can do is fill gaps for the district in relation to those. It also encourages partnerships and reduce expenditures. So when consortiums can be formed and duplication of efforts such as resources required for fiscal management of a grant are eliminated, there are benefits to students, districts, and taxpayers of Wyoming. Small school districts don't always have the personnel to complete grant applications and manage grants, especially when grant applications are based on enrollment. So this was submitted by Teton County School District. And it really is talking about for them to be able to apply for, receive, or administer grants through grant programs created by federal or state statute or programs. So really it creates a consolidation effort as opposed to the singularity of individual districts. The idea is to help those smaller school districts when they have issues with getting grants because of their size, especially at the federal level. And then they can consolidate with local groups like the BOCES. Questions on that resolution? What I kind of would ask then is Chairman Sussex to just ask for then a consensus to move forward for board member Salcedo to move forward with at the delegate assembly supporting that resolution.
Is there a consensus of this board for trustee Salcedo to move forward with this resolution?
Yes.
No concern. Excellent. So the next one is the compulsory attendance early intervention on page 12 or 22, I apologize. So right now, currently, if a student or guardian has a student in first grade and their 7th birthday falls on or before August 1st or September 15th, they are not of compulsory age to attend. So a student in first grade, even though the intent of the rule is that first graders have a compulsory attendance, you have those students that fall through the cracks that are of an age that is younger than their 7th birthday. So they're turning 7 after August 1st or September 15th. So you have these cracks in the situation where you have a number of first graders who have that birthday later who are not being held to compulsory attendance. So the principal as a first grader right now, as the intent of the rule was, is to have first graders attend school. They're falling through those cracks because of the age. So what that rationale and what they'd like to do is change that to having the current requirements then be if they are in 7th grade, or to the 7th grade, in first grade, as opposed to that being strictly tied to their age, more tied to their grade level. The other piece of information there for everybody who may not be aware, kindergarten is not a compulsory grade that parents have to send their child to, based on current statute.
Is it the consensus of this board to allow trustee Salcedo to vote to affirm this?
Yes.
Thank you. This next one is really, I think, one that absolutely needs to move forward. This is regarding special education graduation counts. Currently, special education students that complete a certificate of completion by meeting their prescribed IEP goals and learning plans as outlined by their meeting IEP team equate to a dropout status on the WDE 950. ESSA does not allow for these students to be counted as on-time graduates unless they meet all of the qualifications set for graduation. However, ESSA does allow students who have received an alternative diploma to count toward the extended year adjusted cohort graduation. Wyoming does not currently have an adjusted diploma. We can learn from other states who have pursued this option and have developed an alternative diploma for special education students these students and staff that work with them, work incredibly hard to meet their individualized needs, and see that work equate to the status of dropout is demoralizing, unfair, and unjust. I strongly agree with this. This is work that I'd like to see us do on the local level, not only regarding special education students, which I think would still fit in that, but creating different pathways to graduation. And this is something that would address that at least statewide. And I think we have some work to do locally to even accommodate even those students who may not be on IEP, but may not be interested in a pathway track, but still have the opportunity to graduate and receive a diploma. This is a little different, that this would be supporting it being discussed at the delegate assembly. They have not given no recommendation, but if the board is comfortable in giving a recommendation, trustees, I'll say, oh, I would encourage that.
Is it the consensus of this board to encourage trustee Salcedo to affirm this item?
The last item is the elimination of corporal punishment from Wyoming public schools. The last 20 years of research on the detrimental effects of corporal punishment is overwhelming. I'll let you read through that. It kind of explains itself. We currently do not practice or have anything within policy related to Goshen County. This is more of a statewide piece representing all schools to eliminate corporal punishment in Wyoming. As you can see through the reading, of the 48 school districts in Wyoming, only 2 still have it in board policy.
Is it the consensus of this board to encourage trustee Salcedo to affirm this item?
Okay. Then the last piece are advocacy agenda items. And so as you look through those items for consideration, those would be things that they would be lobbying for. And I'm just going to cover the overall pieces of those and not the detailed list, but if we could go down and even just give a thumbs up if you're supportive of this. If you feel that you kind of need more information or more discussion, if you would just place your thumb halfway across like this, we can have more information to share, and then we can kind of move forward at the pace to learn and provide Mr. Salcedo with some information regarding that. So number 1, equity and flexibility of local school districts. Support the provision of quality education opportunities for all Wyoming students and allow local districts flexibility in how they meet the needs of students. Supportive of that, moving forward in advocacy. Thank you. Number 2, prepared for their future. Support an educational program that provides students with world-class educational opportunities and prepares them for life after high school. Thank you. And number 3, public schools are the choice. Support options for parents and students to choose educational programs within Wyoming public schools rather than diverting dollars to programs that lack transparency, accountability, and local oversight. Thank you. And number 4, school funding. Support a school funding model that accurately reflects the cost of providing quality education and allows local school districts block grant flexibility. Keyword there to me is block grant flexibility. No problem. Let's have some more conversation related to that. So go ahead and I'll kind of cover the information there. One of the bullets is oppose further cuts to education, maintain funding in accordance with a funding model that is cost-based and reflective of the actual cost of providing a quality education in all Wyoming communities. The advocate for regular and predictable adjustments to the model, including the ECA, RCA adjustments to account for the effects of inflation and changes in cost. Monitor accuracy of state and consultant reports and interpretations. Support the block grant concept and retain local school board authority to deviate from the model to address the needs of the district. Advocate for resources to support the recruitment and retention of school district personnel, recognizing market pressures and shortages. Continue support of the 2016 educational funding white paper and support efficiencies in the statewide education system that don't compromise education while school systems incentivize the sharing of resources across the state. Further discussion and questions related to that.
I guess my only question or concern with that is, I mean, what is considered an adequate amount of funding to provide a quality education? That's, and that could vary between district to district or anywhere, so I think that's, I mean, I'm all for the funding model, I just like more clarification there.
No problem. So what, the way I kind of interpret that is based, and I could be completely wrong, but I'm giving this information, so Mr. Salcedo may bring up the same points. Is when we have and hire a group to do that analyzation of what is the appropriate cost of education for the current basket of goods, then stating that we either supply the dollars to support that basket of goods, or we take a look at the basket of goods and reduce that load on local school districts to supply those. Leaving it up to local school districts, not to say that they don't want to have that basket of goods provided, but they got to find their own way of supporting that funding wise. I think is a key factor to me in that difference, and I think it's a key factor that we look at local school funding related to the state, and I think would be a great advocacy point for our board members, is even if the state were to eliminate things from basket of goods, that's not saying locally that we can't choose to support that. That we can't say, we're gonna find a way here locally, but it is taking away the requirement statewide to have that blanket set over that you shall or you must be the same type of basket of goods as anywhere else, because we already kind of do that. There are things in Goshen County that we support funding wise that aren't part of that basket of goods. But we've said it's really important locally, and we want to make sure to support that. And I think that's a key for the school funding model going forward, and how the legislature needs to take a look at that. Is there anything specifically, maybe I would recommend talking with Trustee Salcedo in having him advocate for those things, and that specifically if you have questions surrounding any of those bullet points, if that's okay. That we don't necessarily say on number 4 we have complete consensus, but we have some questions.
Completely acceptable.
Number 5, school safety, support efforts to provide all students with safe and supportive learning environments while providing flexibility for local districts in meeting student and staff safety needs. I will point out one of the bullets that I am extremely supportive of and would highly advocate for our board members to reach out to the legislatures is support the funding and use of school resource officers. This is an imperative factor for us as a district, and we hopefully will have some information coming up that Trustee Sussex and I will be sharing regarding further coverage of SROs and our other buildings in the district. Everybody supportive of that? Thank you. The last one, other issues or positions, just want to bring it to your attention. Monitor the efforts to transition to monthly collection of ad valorem taxes and seeking mechanisms to minimize the amount of uncollected taxes. I think this is paramount. It doesn't reach the level of getting on for assembly items, but it has affected us locally, as Ms. Gates can address and state clearly that this has definitely affected us in that change.
This item has affected us slightly. The ad valorem taxes is huge for those districts with a lot of mineral taxes. We saw the change in the collection and distribution between the end of June payment and the July payment, because we have very little minerals. We didn't see some of the changes that those districts with a lot of mineral activity saw, but this is something that the business managers would like to see topic on and potential change.
And then number 2, support raising the mandatory attendance age to 18 at graduation, whichever comes first, and exempting the homeschooled students from that regulation. Does anybody have any questions related to that? These are items that aren't specifically on the agenda, but may be asked to speak to. So if you feel very strongly about something, would encourage trustees to speak about that. Feel free, if you're kind of in the middle, it won't come up, but if you strongly feel one direction or the other, feel free to speak to that if you like. Okay. Number three, I would advocate for his support in this, and two reasons, I'll read it first. Support reduction of requirements for hiring coaches in order to improve recruitment, retention of staff that support extracurricular and co-curricular activities. I think they've come a long way. The only hesitation that I think they've kind of missed is there's still two courses, and one in particular that you actually have to take through a in-person course at the collegiate level. And I think there's a way to meet the requirements, because I think all the requirements that our coaches meet are adequate and should still be met. But we found a way to deliver those virtually in every capacity but those two courses. And I really would encourage the Department of Education, along with the Coaches Association, to figure out a way to have that offered virtually for individuals as opposed to having it currently as a requirement for in-person courses. Okay, thank you. And that covers everything that I have related to the LMIPS.
Okay, does anybody need a 5-minute break or anything? Nobody didn't keep going. Great. All right, 5 minutes. So at this time, we're gonna move to letter D, which is the public forum portion. Please keep in mind, there's 5-minute time limit, and refrain from using any names. And the first one up is Ms. Rebecca Cohen.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I wanted to give an update on the Health and Wellness Committee. Really, there wasn't much traction until I took it upon myself to visit the food services staff meeting. I attended, but tried very hard not to ask any questions. I did learn quite a few interesting things. And was finally contacted for a November 17th meeting. Strangely enough, they're having a hard time getting people to volunteer for this because people don't want to be on a committee where they just meet. They actually want to do something. And as of yet, the Health and Wellness Committee does not have a clear defined goal, in my opinion. I am hoping that after we meet November 17th, we can solidify, define our goals, and therefore be able to recruit people more specific to the slots. One of the things that I learned that was quite interesting, or at least I found it quite interesting, is the public perception that the school does not provide a hot breakfast or does not provide adequate meals. Several of the cooks said that for their school size, they are providing 10 to 15 hot breakfasts. For instance, the example you used was the sausage, the biscuits. They were making 15 and 20 for even Torrington. Why? Because the students won't eat it. It is that it's not provided. Even my junior high schooler says, yeah, I have to go in and grab so many of the whatever. I'll make sure it's packaged so I can have a snack for later. He just carries it in his backpack when he's hungry later, even though I have offered to give him treats. And so the other thing that was mentioned was when they give a choice of a home cooked meal, such as lasagna, or the chicken nuggets / hamburger, the student will almost always choose the fast food option because that's what they know. So it seems to me that we have a cultural issue coming into play in addition to nutrition side of it and choices available. That's the end of that. While visiting teachers at the parent-teacher conferences, because I want to give credit where credit is due. This year there was a new math program implemented, the Eureka Math. I have a 7th grader and a middle schooler. I will not share which teacher said what, but one of the teachers said at the beginning of the year, I'm not too sure about this math program. It's pretty different than what I have used to teaching. As of now, that same teacher is very excited about it. Seems to be on board. She says, I feel like I require more time to get more accustomed to it. But she seems to really like it. I have seen the paperwork. The majority of the problems are story problems. Why? Well, life is a story problem. Nowhere is it written that in order to find out how much carpet I need, it's written on the wall what you need to do to find that. You just need to know, you need to figure this out. Life is a story problem. The Eureka is, from what I have seen, is not only teaching that you take the length times the width, but also the how and the why. How you find those numbers, why you find numbers, and most importantly, does that number make sense? if the number doesn't make sense, okay, so what did you do wrong? And it's more of a critical thinking thing in addition to the math, which I think is very appropriate. A lot of these kids, they don't know how to think. They just tell me what to do. Tell me what numbers to plug in and what operation to use, because I just have, they have very little experience with that. Both of the teachers I spoke to today really thought that the Eureka Math program was working well for them. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And that is it for our public forum this evening. We'll move to letter E, recommended actions. Number 1 is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any member wishes to pull? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstention? Brings us to number 2. Second. Yes. Number 2, new business. Letter A, consider approval of proposed revision of district policy 4119.5, 4219, 5156, sexual discrimination and harassment as presented on first reading. Recommendation is to approve proposed revision to district policy 4119.5, 4219, and 5156. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve this deadline.
There's a second. Any discussion?
I would just add, the only change that actually this is making is changing it from school days to business days in regards to informing those involved in that situation. So that is the only change. Like, if we were to have a situation again where the incident occurred in May and we were talking in school days, we wouldn't be able to count any of those summer days. And so that's the reason for business days rather than school days.
Okay, all those in favor of approving revision to district policy 4119, 4219, and 5156, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Letter B, consider approval of editorial revision to district policy 4230, classified staff and fringe benefits as presented. The recommendation is to approve proposed editorial revision to district policy 4230 as presented due to 10-month employees now receiving 12 paychecks per 2022 salary relation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Right.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the editorial revision to district policy 4230, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. Letter C, consider approval of proposed revisions, combination of related policies and title change to district policy 4150.1 and 4240.5 maternity/paternity leave as presented on first reading. The recommendation is to approve the proposed revisions to revise the number and title to district policy 4325 around parental leave as proposed on first reading. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second? Second.
The reason for this change is you're eliminating the separation of a classified versus a certified. Now that both are paid on a 12-month scale, there's not the need for 2 different policies.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving this change, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carries. Letter D, Consider approval of proposed editorial revisions to District Policy 5105, student representatives to the board as presented. The recommendation is to approve the proposed editorial revisions to the District Policy 5105. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just had a quick question, we reworded part of it. And then we X out part of it, and X out, and then add it, is that just keep things in order?
Order, and then also the elimination of some of the requirements. What we found is that there were some things related to like a parental letter, and to make it easier for some students to be able to apply for that, if it's still ranged from that. I did want to just make sure, okay, yep. I wanted to make sure that we have the right and we do on those what I saw. So yes, that is the reason. I appreciate Maureen taking a look at that. Also, as a former parent of a former student representative, knowing the requirements and what might make it easier to increase the number of applicants, but also then knowing that we want still parents involved, but maybe not have to have the requirement level. And I have one.
Have it, I need to get back into one question on this in the application process where you struck out and then added in red. It seems to me we need to restart this up on my copies first.
Will probably work out. It's a word thing.
I understand.
Thank you for noticing that. Sure. I'll call the chairman again. Trustee. Jeffries.
Okay, all those in favor of approving proposed editorial revisions to District Policy 5105, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carried. Letter E is consider approval of school improvement plans for Lingle Fort Laramie Elementary School and for Lingle Fort Laramie Middle School. The recommendation is to approve the school improvement plan as presented for Lingle Fort Laramie Elementary School and Middle School. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Chairman Sussex, may I ask Mr. Gilchrist to come up and kind of just talk a little bit briefly about that plan to answer any questions that might be there. We talked a little bit briefly about the difference in how those schools were identified versus how they may be perceived to be identified, and then also that plan that he has to move those schools out of that designation.
First, state statute, we're required because we were not meeting the state standards or the state requirements for adequate progress. That requires your approval. One of the questions that came to me was the similarity of the two school improvement plan. Couple things. We were very uniform in what we do in our buildings and we do in the district. And my K-12 leadership team is who developed this. So we had a conversation. This is actually a continuation of a plan we started 2 years ago. We met with the state. They helped us develop this plan going forward. We've updated a few things in it. One thing I noticed as I was going through this, we did not include OG in the elementary program, in the elementary plan. That will be addressed. There is going to be a significant change in the school improvement plan process going forward with the state. It's going to go from a 2 or 3 page document to 10+ pages starting next year, and will require training to go with it. So at the request of the state, if you'd already started the plan, they requested you just keep doing it because we're going to be making a significant leap going forward. We decided to go with student growth as our goal within these 2 plans. The growth in the state accountability model is not based on just simply growing from where you're at. What they do is they take your academic peers and you have to grow more than 50% of those within a group. So let's say a student scores 550 in reading. They will take all of the same age, same grade level peers that scored 550 and within a few points of either side to create a cohort. And within that cohort, you have to grow greater than 50% to be considered that you've made growth for that year or adequate growth for the year. So with that, we determined that if we're doing that within, and equity is another growth standard that is used to make the determination. And that's taking the bottom 20% of students in the previous year scores and making sure that they are growing as much as the upper 80%. So we figured if we address the growth model within those cohort groups, we will be meeting all of the requirements throughout the plan. So that's the basis of why we did the plan and what we did. It is convoluted, to say the least. It's a interesting formula. The growth plan, for example, the elementary, we're within point-ish in each of those areas to be exceeding the standard, but because of where we fell within that formula, we were not meeting the standard. So frustrating because of the hard work we do, but we're always looking to improve. So this is something that we do annually, regardless of how well we do. So just because of the circumstances, I do need your approval for this improvement. Do you have any questions for me? You'll also see that the administrators, several of the schools within the district were partially meeting, and they're also required to meet to provide school improvement plan. If you go to the website, those are all listed. You'll see very similar plans at most of the schools to what you were presented with from us today. All right.
Any other discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the school improvement plan for Lingo Fort Laramie Elementary School and Lingo Fort Laramie Middle School, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carries. That brings us to letter F, which is consider approval of purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of student and staff laptops. This item has changed just a little bit in light of some new prices we've received. So the recommendation is to table this item until the next meeting. Do I have a motion? I still move to table this item. Is there a second? Any discussion? We already need to.
Yes, it's definitely a need. It has to do with the price that came versus that price that was in the agenda. There in that price that is the agenda, it was for a portion of those. So there was a significant uptick, but I would 100% agree that in order to keep our and maintaining the one-to-one, it will certainly be needed. We don't get behind anymore by waiting a month, as I visited with Mr. Foster, so I think it's best to have that and all that information for the next agenda or next purchase.
Okay, all those in favor of tabling letter F, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item is tabled. Letter G, consider approval of change orders submitted for the interior finishing of the new southeast ag shop. The recommendation is to approve the change orders submitted by Goshen County Construction LLC for the interior finish work of the southeast ag shop in the total amount of $981,559, pending approval by the insurance company. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this should be the final request for any sort of approval with the reconstruction of the southeast ag shop. If you think back to what you've approved thus far, you've approved the demo of the shop that was damaged through the fire. You approved the prefabricated metal building. I also shared with you that this piece would be coming forward. This is the interior finishes for the ag, for the reconstruction of the ag shop. What we did, wanted to get the demo going before school started, and there would be students around. And we wanted to get the project into the pipeline for the prefabricated metal building. At those times when the specs were put together and the plans were put to bid, we didn't have all the specs or the plans finalized for the interior work and the interior fixtures. I spoke with the architect as well as the insurance company and posed to the insurance company that we do it as a change order request, which is what's coming before you tonight. The reason for that is that had we put this on the street as an RFP, we have a couple of issues that we might have faced. The first being such that local competition may have known that there was one contractor who was doing the demo as well as having been awarded the exterior prefabrication of the metal building, and other competition not have bid, knowing that we already had a contractor we were working with, or we run the risk of the contractor we're working with knowing that there's the potential nobody else may have bid and bidding it high. So what we did is we, at the insurance's approval, we put the specs as well as the plans in front of the contractor, and we said, you know, here's a proposal request, we want your best price, and the architect's gonna estimate it as well. What you have here is the contractor's price, and I can share with you, the architect has this estimated slightly higher than what the contractor is pricing it here. Insurance has given me a verbal approval, and I should have in writing tomorrow that they're approving the same dollar amount, and it would be fully funded through our insurance. So what I'm bringing forward tonight is a request for a change order in the amount of $981,559 to Goshen County Construction for the interior finishes. With this, we're looking at a project being completed prior to the start of school and having an egg shop when we start next August, school year 23-24.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the change order for the interior finishing of the new southeast egg shop in the amount of $981,559, submitted by Goshen County Construction LLC, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carries. That brings us down to letter F, topics for discussion. Number one is to discuss information presented by the alternative calendar committee and narrow the options for further discussion at the December regular board meeting.
Questions, comments, ideas?
I did sit on the committee, and I guess what impressed me, moment of what even how to work this, all of the staff did to get this to pull together is amazing. But we had staff members that actually contacted other schools from other states. So not just Wyoming schools, discussing particularly the 3-day or the 4-day week. And it amazed me because every school they contacted basically said the same thing about why it didn't matter what state they were in. Texas said the same thing. At first, parents were a little hesitant. After the 3 years of coming back at it, they said, we love it. We want it to continue. Colorado was the same thing. I think it's that one of them contacted, but I was really impressed with the amount of they put in to try to find data that we could understand and use.
So I think what our goal kind of here is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kramer, but we're trying to narrow this down so that
And not necessarily having to narrow it down, actually, if there are things within each of them that you kind of would like to hear more information about and actually have opportunity to digest it. And then have it come before you in December related to more information. I want to provide guidance for them in relation. I don't want to have them work for more or answering any more questions if there's really no interest in moving forward. That work that they've done, at least we're not having them work anymore to get anything that we're not going to go in any direction that was not interesting. I don't want this to be a, oh yes, I'm fully supportive of it, but there is a time like I am. I think there's an interest for me in all three of those related to, I think there's positives and drawbacks for each one of those things. And when it comes to making a decision, it is a very difficult task. But that doesn't mean that at this point in time, for me, I could be able to be comfortable to say no to any one of those three. Now, if as a board member, you do feel that this doesn't further warrant any further investigation of the board, just feel free to speak that, and that gives us guidance moving forward on where I can direct this committee going forward with what their work should be.
I'd like to see, I think they referenced, there's 28 other school districts that have 40 working school week. I didn't know that, I think it's that high, so that was good. I would like to see, I guess, a little bit deeper information, basically comparing some of those other school districts to our district, to see what similarities we do have and what differences we do have from some of the other people on that.
I would like to see what I know it's not gonna be exact and I don't expect it to be, but at least the cost comparisons as far as savings. Like if we went to a 4-day school week versus, some of these other options, I would just like to see what the financials look like.
One of the biggest factors in the 4-day school week is there could be higher amount of savings depending upon if there is the goal to keep hourly employees at the same rate. You definitely, when you choose as a board, you have it on a savings, there are savings potential, but then there's also drawbacks to that, as we know. So quantify that and put that in perspective. If this is what the savings, if not this, is that kind of what you're looking for in relation to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking necessarily at anybody else's hours or anything like that, but I would like to see. Even more so for future reference, if it would ever become an issue where, hey, guess what, we need to figure out how we're gonna save some money or whatever, I would like to at least see what that looks like.
I guess to me, this is a big concern has been staff retention and recruitment. And so if this is something that benefits the staff in our district, we need to hear a little bit more about that, how the staff feels. And if the district staff have a preference one way or the other, I don't know how we go about that, but.
Well, and I think the same thing with students. I think you see the models probably less stressed, especially the high school students, and maybe not to elementary, but especially when middle school and high school students, less stress put on, which is going to higher achievement.
And I know the childcare issue has come up quite a bit. I don't remember the meeting when we discussed like Burns. That's before they week, right? And there are similar size that, so how do those?
One of the things that, and I would ask them to, if there's any other additional information that I'm missing here, but as they progress through this practice, it started off as a school support program, much like our practice program, had a large amount of students at first. And then as each year progressed, it got less and less as employers adjusted schedules to meet those employees' needs and things. And there were different aspects of the community that changed in relating to accommodating for those changes in times. But at first, yes, there was a significant need as those adjustments were made. But as soon as it became a norm as opposed to something new and completely different, there were adjustments made. And that's what we kind of found with many of the things that we implement on the school level, from start times, to end times, to any of those, and especially bus routes, that after time, there are different adjustments that can be made.
Well, and I believe there was also one school that provided childcare, and when we started out, it was like for 1,000 students. And now it's down to 100 students. So it is just a matter of time and adjustment.
I think that's the biggest thing for me, especially elementary age kids. That would be step one. I think for me, it's an initial, some sort of plan for supporting childcare somehow at the start, because I just don't think without that, skip over that part, it's not gonna work.
And I think that they have tried to address childcare. I really truly think they do. But we've got to remember, we had days off throughout the school year anyway. The parents had to figure out what to do with their children. It's no different than that. They're just putting them all on Friday rather than on Monday or Friday or whatever day comes up.
It was interesting, the number of school districts that said exactly that. So I think we're in a position that we have the luxury of the practice program and their willingness to participate with us, that can be addressed. The last time around, that was a very difficult subject to get past, because it is a hardship. And I think that we're in a position, because of our relationship with them, that can be addressed immediately and taken off the service.
I think from my perspective, if we were going full day on Fridays currently, it's a lot bigger deal than, half day. You still have to find childcare for half of the day, no matter what. So what is that extra half of a day, that extra 4 hours? There's not a lot of childcare facilities that do half days. So that's another thing. And then the other thing is from an educational standpoint, what are we accomplishing by going half days on Fridays? I know I've asked my daughter a lot of times, what do you guys do today? And it's nobody's fault. It's just a factor of how it works. But and she said, well, it's Friday. We didn't do a lot today. And so from an educational standpoint, which is what we're there to do, I don't really feel that we're doing as much on Fridays as we could be. We're not getting the benefit of it like we could, I guess.
One of the biggest factors, I think, in either of those is the intervention time. Apparently, students and know the great exploration time that they have currently built into their schedule at TMS, and I greatly appreciate. I also know there could be some of that time spent on more intense academic related things if students who were being what we call flexed at the middle school had time to come in and actually work with the teacher individually, because the reason for those exploratories and why they're built multiple times within the TMS schedule is to give those teachers the opportunity to meet with the students who are struggling with those. And I would love that time for my student, even though he enjoys a lot of those exploration times and there are good courses that he has to create, to be spent more on more intense academic achievement, and then giving him the option to have a reward by maintaining and exceeding expectations on the regular time. I think the intervention piece is important. I also was, prior to the presentation, actually, I heard about it more within there. I'm intrigued for the high school level in regards to trimesters. I think that that's something that I think could help address some of the needs, because when you look at a student who struggles their freshman year, and there's a student who struggles their freshman year, so they're obviously already struggling to stay in school. Then you take a look at their sophomore year of their schedule, and I'll tell you what it looks like. They have English 1 first period, then they go to English 2 because they failed English 1, so they have to get that. Then they're taking them at the same time. Then you have the same thing with science. And you have those things perpetually. That is not setting up students to succeed. It's giving them the opportunity. It is, because that is what we need to do. That is our obligation, to make sure we're not saying to this student after freshman year, oh, sorry, you're stuck, you're not going to graduate. But we don't really have a plan that works currently with our system to be able to get kids caught up in our current system on a semester schedule, on a regular 2-semester schedule.
I can speak to that, also, parent, my son is doing that with the math class. Um, Yeah, it don't work.
And
He's trying to learn 2 years worth at once.
And that's another one that you will certainly hear those that are detractors and things, because it is new, it is different, it is unique. And that is a tough sell for, I know I, as a teacher, it would be an adjustment to move from a 2-semester to a 3-semester one, because there are adjustments required, but for the benefit of students, I think that there is some definitely reason to have some further discussions along those lines, moving in that direction. And it doesn't require anything significant to happen to this committee. Any other things that I can convey to the committees to continue that work, or anything that you'd say, you know, this doesn't seem the right time to pursue more questions related to that?
I think it seemed like just the right time. You're hearing principals saying, I have staff that it's November and they have reached their max. And I think it is a perfect time to do something. Now, I know the Torrington Telegram said that I would be on board in January. I'm not, by the way. But I would encourage you guys to move forward with looking at something else to help the students, to help the staff, to help the principals, to help the admin. We've got to make some changes, because there aren't teachers to fill the spots that teachers are leaving.
Anything else? Any other topics other than this that anybody wishes to discuss? Okay. We'll move down to letter G, future meetings.
Yeah, so if, just to point out for the future meetings piece, the December regular meeting is on that Monday, not that Tuesday, due to choir concerts on that Tuesday. So we wanted to make sure not have that conflict there for them, because it was the only time in which they could actually have a practice before. So we didn't want them having that. So just notate that on the upcoming meetings. The other piece is the Wyoming School Board Association Annual Conference. I will be attending. I know Sarah, I believe you committed to attending also. If there's still anybody interested, I would encourage you, if you have time, to go to that conference. It is a very good conference. The agenda came out, and I think was shared. The keynote on that first day is phenomenal. I won't be able to kind of to speak to the specifics, but I know based on other information that I've heard in podcasts about the keynote, it will be pivoting towards unity and education. I think is an important component of where we're going to be needing to go, and it is always a very good conference to attend. So if you do have an interest, please feel free to reach out to Lori, and she can make arrangements. That's everything for future ones.
Okay. With that, we'll move down to letter H, superintendent report.
So I point to page 119 of your packet, a letter from Wirelex on thank you for submitting information, participating in the Electrify and Save Rebate program. This has to do with the new LED fixtures, excuse me, in Southeast High School and Southeast Elementary School. I know as when I attended Southeast graduation, Mr. Epler was phenomenal in timing of those lights to after the slideshow, hit it perfectly and still have lighting perfect by the time. Now with the new LED lighting, Mr. Williams is not put in that same position. So he left this evening. I was going to give him a hard time. You won't have to worry about timing this perfectly as Mr. Epler did. Then an update on the literacy grant. I'm just gonna share my screen here to provide you with some information. One of the keys to the literacy grant that was approved was the early literacy component that we have that is unique to Goshen County. This is not something that was specifically required in there, but we felt early childhood, early literacy is extremely important. And we have some phenomenal early childhood programs in the county, and how we could then take this information, Orton Gillingham learning, and further it down to those lower levels. And so I'm just going to take you through this timestamp to just kind of give you some information. In December 29th of last year, we sent an initial letter inviting daycare to preschools to indicate interest in this program. We also sent out information over the next month. And then in January, we sent an email to the board about who was contacted and if there were other additional groups or early childhood centers that should be informed of this opportunity. And then we did the same thing for the admin team, trying to get the word out to all of their early childhood education centers to make sure that they were aware of the program. Then we set introductory meetings in February to talk about that, where dates and times were picked by most of the popular choices that were offered. So what it is we have free teachers that actually go into these centers and work with the students based on the schedule that works with that early childhood center to start integration of Orton Gillingham teaching strategies to get them set up. And so when they go in there, they are getting set to be kindergarten ready, because that's one of the key factors is the more students that we help to the early childhood education centers that come into kindergarten ready, that means that we're spending less time trying to replicate some of the instruction that we need and know how to do. Some other states have made this a significant investment and have had state investment on 4-year-old preschools and pieces of that. So through the process, we confirmed participation and then also had the planning process, and 9 centers providers joined us for the first year. So 116 3, 4, and 5-year-olds are now being served by these teachers. That is a phenomenal number because we know those are going to be kindergartners in our district, and that's going to make a significant impact of having that early childhood intervention time, and also helps to kind of get them used to that instruction. I talked to one of the parents of a early childhood student recently, and it's funny. As these early lit teachers will be in January to do a presentation, and the consistency and orientation of what they're having students do. These kids are coming home and they're already reading words. They're using sound letter relationships. They're saying this letter makes this sound, and those type of things that early age. Candy Schneider also for the month of August was helping in preparing this training session. She is through MC, who we contacted through Orton Gillingham as our trainer, and it is significant the amount of time. I hope to have an opportunity to have her come in and just maybe teach a snippet of a lesson. But she has a phenomenal story, and we are so blessed to have her as one of our people from MC to walk us through it. And the reason that OG has had such an impact in this district is really centered around her and Victoria. One provider that hadn't previously responded earlier contacted the early lit teachers 2 days before the beginning of instruction. And so we tried to accommodate that, but all the slots that were available did not work within their schedule. So unfortunately, one provider, we did have to say next year, please make sure we get you on board and we will be able to have you participate. But outside of that one provider, there are not any other indicated an interest for not participating. There's another one that will be participating next year. And then on August 29th, instruction began for most of the 9 centers. Centers started the following week, so it was kind of indicated by the calendar and how it worked. So they partnered, the early lit teachers also partnered with Lincoln's Title I night that occurred on October of 2022. And all students and families served by the program were invited, and they also partnered with the Goshen County Library and activities. Just some things that we've heard, anecdotal reports about the effectiveness of the program. The early lit team will present to the board in January or in February, depending upon how their mid-year assessments go, to give a presentation on what they're doing, what instruction they're providing, and some insight onto the assessments and how those results have looked after we've had an opportunity to assess them. Stop sharing there for a moment. I wanted to bring one more document. And so these are the preschools, daycares in Goshen County that are interested. As you can see, a list of yeses and those that chose not to participate this year, and those that we didn't get a response. But the majority did get a response within the community, and we're really happy for them to join us. I'm sure with the different schedules and things that we're able to provide, we'll be able to accommodate anybody's future needs as we kind of progress through this program. It's a great program. It's something unique that we have done in Goshen County. I'm very proud of that because there are not school districts around the state that are focusing on this type of assistance for our programs. And that's an important piece because we know so many, as you can see from that list, it's a very extensive list of different early childhood opportunities we have in this county. But the instruction and the opportunity to learn side by side with somebody who has gone through those week-long trainings, who's gone through the intensity of Orton Gillingham, and to learn side by side is something that is really helpful because a lot of times, if you are an instructor in one of these facilities, you don't have the opportunity for professional development that we do at the K-12 level. And so to be able to have that person come in on a weekly basis and share some of their expertise really builds that capacity around the district in that early childhood level. Any questions related to our early lit portion of the literacy grant?
Is there any discussion on these groups that they're not currently enrolled in people or daycare?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. That's a really good question that I would have to visit with the early literacy team to determine, what are we estimating in regards to that. The interesting part would be making the assessment of how many kindergarten students or parents who plan to have their child go to kindergarten next year. With that 116, I'm guessing we're reaching a good percentage, but you're absolutely right. There are some that are not getting those services right now. How do we reach their needs? So the next item that I have is our enrollment numbers. Share that also. And this is the ADM. Now, if you remember, the ADM is based also on our attendance percentage. This column here on the right indicates how many students we had last month. We had 1,632.11, and this month we are at 1,634.45. So we still have that increase, actually creeping up to that pre-COVID number of 1,650. What makes that number impacted and why we see the 0.11, because how can we have 0.11 of a student? It is impacted by the average daily attendance. And as you can kind of look, it is interesting to see. It is slightly less than where it was, but if you look back to October of last year, you can see it is significantly more. A 3% jump in attendance is a pretty high number, as you can kind of reference in previous months, that our attendance rate is significantly higher than where we've been at last year. a little bit higher than the year before, but we're getting creeping back up to that norm, pre-COVID number. The interesting part with that was enacting the attendance policy. There has been some more discussion. There's still somewhat getting back into where it was pre-COVID in relation to working with those outside entities. Still is a little bit different than it was. We're not back to that normalcy of pre-COVID. So we're still working on some things. Still working on making sure we have as many students there present each and every. Then I just had a couple of things I just wanted to touch on real quick. And one being, last month during the public comment, there was a question in relation to the agenda. I just want to make sure and point everybody to where to get that information if they have questions and where it was referenced. So if you go to the website and you click on board, school board underneath the district offices, and you go down and go to board of trustees, and take you to this page here. Then if you go over to leadership governance, it outlines the responsibilities of board members, superintendent in different various situations. So this board governance document on page 9 outlines who is responsible for creating the agenda in relation to those meetings. And I'm just going to scroll down to that page 9. And in our board governance document under number 6, the board chairman and or vice chairman in consultation with the superintendent will develop the meeting agenda. I think it was last month reported that Mrs. Bullington, our trustee Bullington, actually designs the agenda, which is different than what obviously our leadership governance states and who is responsible for developing that. Wanted to clarify that and give that information out. The next piece involved education week being next week. So prior to last year, we had provided meat and cheese trays in the district. We can certainly do so the same way that we had previously. Last year, we offered vouchers to the Bread Doctor, Java Jar, and AJ's, and that was greatly appreciated also. I just needed some direction in which way to go for education to celebrate our educators and the outstanding job they do our district. If we wanted to stay the way we did last year and do vouchers, it is certainly cleaner and provides more opportunities for individuality, but we can also revert back to the meat cheese. Everybody is really strongly advocating for meat and cheese trays. They were. Okay. I'll proceed with that. And my last thing, I just wanted to thank Trustee Jesperson for setting in this evening. I did tell him that it was not a controversial agenda. I did leave out that it was going to be a very long presentation agenda. So thank you very much for stepping in. I greatly appreciate that. I know the board members do in a very unique situation as it is election eve to replace that position.
I was joking that I was back for one day only, and I'd like to make 3 of those board. Thank you for having me. All right, with that, we're adjourned.